Oh, there you are. All right, great. Thank you. Welcome back. One quick reminder that I was going to say at the end of the enforcement report, but I'd like to say it now, is just a reminder to all the board members, as we get our mail votes, to remember to review them and vote on them timely when they're needed. We've extended the deadline sometimes in the last few months, and I realize now that we're traveling again, people are going on vacations, the stuff may fall through the cracks, but it's really important to get everyone voting on these mail issues. I say mail ballot, but on elections. Anyway, that was just a little reminder. Now I think we're going a little off schedule to if public comment, to take one public comment on item 8 from yesterday, which was the access to care report. That for some reason they were unable to do that yesterday, and we want to extend the opportunity to do it today. So moderator, if you could open the public comment to, is it Karen Atlas? Okay. At this time, thank you.
All right, this is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I've opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on agenda item 8, please click that Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen, or use the raise hand function. I'll pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, and it looks like we do have a request from Karen Atlas. Karen, you'll be given 3 minutes to speak and a 15-second warning. I'm going to request to unmute your microphone now. All right, you are unmuted.
All right, thank you so much. On behalf of the Animal Physical Therapy Coalition, we would like to thank the board for acknowledging the ongoing issue regarding the lack of access to animal physical therapists for animal PT rehab care. We appreciate that the entire board has had access to read our documents, and that Dr. Noland acknowledged the issue during the Access to Veterinary Care Task Force report, and that it was acknowledged that legislation is ultimately the answer. We agree with Dr. Grant Miller of the CVMA to the extent that access to veterinary care is a real public service issue. The public cannot get the services they need for their animals. We were, however, taken aback a bit when it seemed that some appeared to be wanting to cherry pick the access to care issues to address only what they deemed important. The notion of not wanting to address the rehab or PT issue because, to paraphrase, that is not what the board meant when they were tasked to help solve the access to vet care issues, was surprising. It was particularly surprising to hear how they now wanted to reconsider redefining the access to care issues, which would seem to box out some stakeholders, including the APTC stakeholders, and prevent some very important issues from being considered. If this were to happen, this board would again be ignoring the thousands and thousands of Californians who do believe it is an important issue and do want the appropriate access to rehab care for their animals. The APTC expects to pursue legislation in the upcoming legislative session to make clear the ability of licensed physical therapists with advanced training to provide physical rehabilitation services to animals upon the referral and supervision by a veterinarian. We look forward to the prospect of collaborating with the board to solve the important access to animal rehab PT care for the benefits of the consumer and animals in California. We thank you kindly for allowing us to make this remark.
Thank you.
All right, this is the moderator. Appears that was our only request for public comment. Would you like me to close the Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. And now we will move on to item 18D, outreach.
All right, so over the next two, we're going to go relatively quickly before we break for lunch and then start our hearings at 1 o'clock. So the outreach, I provided updates for Strategic Plan 5.1.1. We continue to hold the monthly meetings with CARVDA, and those are, I think, beneficial for both the board and for CARVDA to understand any emerging issues and just provide updates of what's happening with the board and how we're addressing concerns as they come up. And then Kathy already mentioned how we attended the CVMA's Board of Governors meeting on June 2nd. We had also already talked about the educational webinar that we launched on June 9th. And so that's been discussed a few times now. We have the Aavsb Collaboration. I continue to attend executive officer roundtables with Aavsb, other executive officers. I was appointed to their conference committee as well, so now I sit on a couple of their Aavsb's committees. And I did mention that the downside for the conference committee for this year is I was just appointed. Most of the activities for the conference committee have already been finalized for September. So there's not a lot of input for me to provide at this time. But I did offer to make it, if there's anything I could do from home while they're doing that to make it easier, if there's something behind the scenes, I've offered to do that for them. And I am happy to announce that the next Aavsb meeting in 2023 is going to be held in Missouri, which, fingers crossed, we can attend currently. Like right now, we're good. So hopefully it stays that way. And then I just provided an update on the National Occupational Licensing Conference that I was asked to attend. It was me, the executive officer of Barbara Cosmo, and then the DCA deputy director. She also attended, and we went. It was held in Nevada, and we met. There was a lot of legislatures from across the United States who came and attended. It was various licensing entities, and not just for healing arts or professions that would normally be under a DCA type board, but also teachers, teacher credentialing individuals, and just talk about best practices for licensing and how to remove unnecessary barriers. It was very eye-opening to really see how far advanced California is than other states. There's other states who do some pretty, the stuff that they were presenting were like these were new and innovative, but they were things that California's been doing for decades. So it wasn't like a lot of, oh yeah, this is new. There are a couple things that I think we can look at. One was the issue of reciprocity. I think that the board, especially through their sunset bill, did a good job at making it easier for individuals to become licensed from outside of California. So one thing that they had touched on, though, is being able to accept or not requiring the transcripts from the schools every time or from just Aavsb. It was more of if they are licensed in that state and that state had the same requirements, why would the state boards not trust the other state boards if they already verified that they had the right, they met the education requirement? So it was more of a thought out there of if you look at the requirement that they provide proof of graduation, do you really need that proof of graduation if another state has already verified it? And I'm not saying either way. It's just something to maybe consider at a future date to see if we really need that or if there's a better way to do it. But other than that, there were some things that were a little concerning that were being proposed as cool and innovative ideas. And I think that the intent of consumer protection gets a little lost when you're looking at removing unnecessary barriers, because there's a lot of barriers are necessary for consumer protection, right? And so when you're looking at streamlining, you have to make sure that the consumers at the end are still going to be protected if you remove a barrier. One of the concerns I had was I think the state legislature from Utah got up and it said, well, we just signed legislation that allowed the executive officer to waive education requirements if they feel it's equivalent. And it's a concern for me that if this is carte blanche, I mean, that's giving a lot of trust into the executive officer. I would be concerned about that. And when we look at things such as reciprocity and just simply having that license, if in Utah they are able to waive the education requirements because they feel like it, then we obviously wouldn't want a reciprocity with Utah. So, I mean, it's just an example. I think that's an example of going too far on the streamlining for the applicants and losing sight of the consumer protection mandate that we have. so with that, that's really only the highlights that I had for outreach.
Can I add something to your
Yeah, of course.
Maybe you were going to bring it up in a minute, but I just want to point out, I believe the board's received this, and I'm going to put it in the public record, that that's a veterinary publication, online publication, DVM 360, who most recently in their recent publication called out California as an example to other states, and I just want to bring that to everyone's attention. They have a great line in here. It says, for any law to be usable, the concepts must be clearly defined so that the law can be correctly understood and interpreted. And what it goes to is what our board did to ensure that they were preserving veterinary license by providing clear, well-defined language to help veterinarians practicing in their state. And it's regarding our FAQs that we put on the website for VCPR. And it concludes with, which I think compliment the staff and the MDC for working so hard on this. California set a great example of demonstrating how legal language can be easily translated into real-life situations in the veterinary field to help veterinarians practicing in their state be more productive. If other state VMBs will answer these questions, all veterinary professionals will be able to practice more confidently and consistently without fear of losing their license. So I think we want to give a round of applause to the MDC, to the staff, and to this board for once again leading the way. So that's my little plug for outreach. Sorry, Jessica, go.
Oh, no worries. So before we go into public comment, I think we can just touch on the strategic plan, then open it up to both D and E. So in the strategic plan, once again, we are on track to finish this a year early, I believe. There's some outlying things that we have left to do, but we definitely won't need this until the end of 2024 to do that. So, and just to clarify, I think at the last meeting I said that we're looking at doing another strategic plan in October, and I meant for October of next year, because we still are not completed. We're going to complete it before the deadline. So we're looking at setting up in 2023, in October, another strategic plan session to get a new one going, but it won't be in 2024. So.
I just, on the strategic plan, before I open it to the board, I just again want to compliment the staff. When we did our strategic plan meetings with Solid in 2019, maybe it was right before pandemic, I think. I remember walking away after that meeting, and many of our current board members were there, thinking we have created this ridiculously ambitious list of goals in so many diverse areas that I don't know how we're going to ever get them done, really, because I thought, wow, they should have had us narrow them down. But frankly, to the credit of the staff and the efficiencies, et cetera, and the MDC and everyone else who participates to make this successful, we are almost finished with these goals, which I thought were, like I say, incredibly ambitious to begin with, the numbers of goals. So, and I love that report, as I say every time, so thank you very much. Anybody on the board with questions on both the outreach or the strategic plan? I am looking for hands. I am seeing none. All right, then I think we can open this to public comment. And moderator, you can go right to the online folks.
And this will be for 18D and E.
Okay, this is the moderator at the direction of the board. I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access the Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, and seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Now, and there's no voting on these, those were informational only. Now for number 19, future agenda items and next meeting dates.
Okay, so our next meeting date is scheduled for October 19th, 20 through 2022, October 19th, 2022 in Sacramento. And then I also did, I know you guys are used to seeing this in October, but a couple members have asked for the 2023 schedule. And so I just went ahead and I followed what we normally do. It's the third week of each month in January, April, July, and October. And so I put those here, and that also helps me try to get the meeting rooms because they go relatively quickly. And so if you guys have any changes or want to switch it up, just let me know. Now's the time to, if you have conflicts, and we can work through those. I also have the future agenda items. Just a lot of it is based on the MDC tasks that were assigned and that we know that are going to come back to the board, and the tasks from the board strategic plan. From this meeting so far today and yesterday, I know the future agenda item is going to be, we're going to ask that ICBA give a presentation on the NAVLE and also request that AAVSB present on the VT&E and their pass rates. And so anything else that the board would like to add to the list?
Okay, I'm looking for any other suggestions. I have to admit I didn't write notes down. I know we can still add to it, but
yeah.
So I'll have to review my notes to see. I'm looking, Dr. Bradbury, Dr. Nolan, Maria, Diana, nothing up there. And it's obviously, this is just what we've seen today, but we can continue to, we can add to it for a little bit longer, obviously, until the agenda is posted. And on the NAVLE thing, Jessica, I will say, that should just be if we have time. It's informational, and
Okay.
as is the proficiency, the presentation, because our agendas are so full usually that I don't want to waste the board's time, but I think it'd be good for information purposes. So,
Okay.
Dr. Salcedo.
Are we not adding the access to care as an agenda item?
Yeah, so in the task list, those are the things that aren't always done. So the access to care task force, it'll remain on agenda item as long as it is in existence. So you won't see everything that we cover. It's just the main topics that are out of the norm that you'll see listed here.
Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome. All right, don't see any other suggestions from the board right now. So we're now to the point where we can
do public comment on this.
Oh,
one.
I'm sorry, public comment on dates and future agenda items. And nobody in the room, so moderator, please open it up.
This is the moderator, and at the direction of the board, I have opened up the Q&A feature for public comment. Members of the public, if you would like to make a comment on this item, please click the Q&A icon located at the bottom right-hand corner of your WebEx screen or use the raise hand function. I'll go ahead and pause a moment to allow the public time to access that Q&A panel and submit their requests. All right, and seeing none, would you like me to close that Q&A panel?
Yes, please. Thank you very much. At this time, we'll break until 1 o'clock, which is a special order of business, and it's going to be proceeding with 2 hearings. And then we'll go through the hearings, then we will break for deliberation, go into closed session, and then reopen to public session to just adjourn the meeting ultimately. So anyway, 1 o'clock back here. Thank you very much. Okay. Good afternoon. We're back in session for a hearing for a petition of early termination of probation. I think and I'm going to turn it over to our ALJ, Honorable Sean Gavin. There you are.
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes,
People
we
are
can.
nodding and
Thank
giving
you.
Thumbs up. Terrific. Great. My name is Sean Gavin. I'm the administrative law judge who's been assigned to preside over this petition matter. This matter is being heard by the board. I will not be the party who decides this matter. The board will. I'm just presiding over the hearing itself. I want to make sure that we have everyone that we need to have for this hearing. For the Deputy Attorney General's office, it looks like I see Mr. Stone. Good afternoon, Mr. Stone. Let's just do a quick mic check to make sure that I can hear you and others can hear you. Mr. Stone, can you hear me? Can others hear me? Others can hear me.
This is the moderator. I can hear you, Judge Gavin.
Okay.
Let me see if I can confirm if our Deputy Attorney General can hear. Mr. Stone, are you able to hear us? I see that his microphone is unmuted.
All right, well, we give him a chance to see if he can get unmuted. Do we have Ms. Hansen and or Mr. Singh?
Okay.
Are they live there in person? Seeing Ms. Bradbury shake her head, yes. All right, Mr. Singh, can you hear me okay?
Yes, I can.
Okay, very good. And is that, I think I see you in the hearing room. Is that Ms. Hansen beside you?
It is Dr. Hansen. She's right beside me, yes.
Dr. Hansen, pardon my misstatement there, Dr. Hansen. All right, I see the both of you. You can both hear me. Mr. Stone is now using a telephone, so we're hoping that maybe that means some progress is being made. Mr. Stone, just let me know when, if you can't hear me, I'm not sure what I'm even saying right now. Let's just see, can you hear me, Mr. Stone? Not sure instructions for you to tell me when you can hear me are useful. If you can't hear me, say it. Let's just give him a moment to sort that out. In the meantime, I'm just going to make notes of which board members are present. I'm looking at my attendees list. And so let me just sort of go in order here. Is Ms. Bowler present?
Yes, here, Your Honor.
I saw Dr. Bradbury earlier. I think was the one.
Yes, here.
Let me see. Do we have Ms. Laredo?
Yes, I'm here.
All right. Good afternoon. How about, I think I saw Dr. Nolan. Yep, I see her. Good afternoon, Dr. Nolan.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Prado, I see her on the attendee list.
This afternoon.
Good
Your Honor.
afternoon. Dr. Solicito,
I'm here.
and Ms. Sperber.
Ms. Berber is absent.
Okay, but we still have a quorum. Terrific. All right. Mr. Stone, can you hear me okay right now? Okay, now I see you responding, but you are muted.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, success. All right, I'm going to try to orient my screen. I'm at my office, so I have 3 screens up. No one be jealous. But I have to make sure that my screen is facing my video, otherwise you see me talking. All right, good afternoon, everyone. For Mr. Singh and Ms. Dr. Hansen, pardon me, this is mostly for your benefit, but before we go on the record, let me just briefly explain how we'll proceed today in this hearing. Once we go on the record, I'll invite Mr. Stone to briefly present a summary of the license history and discipline, and then present the petition with its other attached packet materials. Mr. Singh, you'll have the right to object to any of those exhibits as you see fit on Dr. Hansen's behalf, of course. Once Mr. Stone has concluded with that, we'll turn it over to you, Mr. Singh, to present Dr. Hansen's case. You can call her as a witness, of course. You can call other additional third parties as a witness. You can submit additional documents as you see fit. After you've done that, I'll then give Mr. Stone a chance to cross-examine any witnesses, including Dr. Hansen. Once that's done, and I will go and give the board members a chance to ask any questions they might have of Dr. Hansen as well. I tend to have the Deputy Attorney General question the witness and the petitioner first before I have the board members do that. I'll go through and I'll just identify the board members because I'm appearing virtually. It appears some of our board members are as well. I'll just go through the list that I just went through and invite any questions. Once no one has any more questions, then Mr. Singh, I'll give you another chance to call any additional witnesses you have or present additional evidence. Once no one has any more evidence to submit, then Mr. Singh, if you'd like to make any closing remarks, you may. Any questions about that procedure, Mr. Singh?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Stone, anything you feel we need to take up before we go on the record?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, I do want to note that we do not have a court reporter for today's hearing. As a result, we'll have to proceed with electronic recording that I can take care of from my office. I understand that the board is also recording this meeting. However, that recording won't be the official recording from the Office of Administrative Hearings perspective. That'll be accomplished on my end. That'll have to be with the consent of all parties. Mr. Stone, would you consent to electronic recording?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
Mr. Singh?
We do as well. Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, very good. So once we go on the record, then I'll just confirm your consent and I will proceed as I explained. Madam President, anything that you feel we need to take up before I go on the record?
No, I think you've covered everything. Thank you.
Your Honor, I do have exhibit binders here to hand out to the board members that are here in person. Would now be the appropriate time to do that?
Yeah, well, let me just ask, do the board members already have a copy of the exhibit binder?
Oh, okay.
Dr. Nolan and Dr. Bradbury nodding their heads, and I think the folks in person probably have one as well. Mr. Singh, if you have something additional to offer, you can of course hand those out, but let me just briefly summarize what I've got. In terms of the petition and the packet, I've got, looks like 5 exhibits. Mr. Stone, correct me if that's wrong, but it looks like it's 5. Exhibit 4 has 9 subparts, but it's 5 total exhibits. And then Mr. Singh, it looks like you submitted 3 exhibits, which were essentially the various CVs of some of the parties that are, not parties, but some of the individuals who wrote some letters of support or provided some other information. Looks like it was Ann Lieber, Francine, Farrell, and Dr. Hansen herself. Does that sound right to you, Mr. Stone?
That's correct.
Mr. Singh?
Yes, Your Honor, that's everything.
Okay, very good. Let me just ask, do any board members not have those materials in front of them? All right.
No, Your Honor.
All right, I'm going to treat silence as agreeing that you have everything. Thank you for confirming that, Mr. Singh. Anything else before we go on the record, Mr. Singh?
Nope, thank you.
All right, very good. Then just pardon me one moment. I talked long enough that my recorder went to sleep, so let me just wake it up and make sure we go on the record. All right, we are on the record in the matter of the petition for termination of probation by Suzanne K. Hansen, DVM. This matter is being heard before the Veterinary Medical Board through the Office of Administrative Hearings, or presided over, I should say, by the Office of Administrative Hearings Administrative Law Judge Sean Gavin. This is board case number 46020180000478 and OAH case number 2022-050644. My name is Sean Gavin. I'm the Administrative Law Judge presiding. Can I take the appearances of the parties, starting with the Deputy Attorney General?
Yes, thank you. Good afternoon, Your Honor, board members, and everyone else. This is Deputy Attorney General Jeff Stone on behalf of the Office of the California Attorney General. We are appearing in this matter pursuant to Government Code Section 11522 on behalf of the people of the state of California. We are not here today representing the California Veterinary Medical Board, but we are here on behalf of the people of the state of California to provide whatever information we can to the court and to the board regarding the petition for termination of probation by Suzanne K. Hansen, pending before the board right now.
Very good. Thank you, Mr. Stone. And for the petitioner?
Amit Singh of Rothschild, Michigan Sands. I am here with Dr. Suzanne Hansen. Good afternoon, everyone.
All right, thank you for that. Let me also establish which board members are present. Do we have Ms. Bowler?
Present.
Dr. Bradbury?
Present.
Ms. Laredo?
Present.
Dr. Noland?
Here.
Ms. Prado?
Present.
And Dr. Solicito?
Present.
All right, very good. Those board members establish a quorum. Before we went on the record, I explained the procedures that will follow today's hearing. I also explained that due to a lack of a court reporter, we will electronically record this matter, and I will take care of doing that electronic recording in addition to any recording that the board maintains for its own internal records. Mr. Stone, do you consent to such electronic recording?
Yes.
And Mr. Singh?
Yes.
All right, very good. Thank you both for that. With that, Mr. Singh, anything that you believe we need to take up before I turn it over to Mr. Stone to present the petition packet and the summary of the license history and discipline?
No, Your Honor.
All right, then Mr. Stone, you can take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you. Good afternoon again, everybody. This is the petition for termination of probation brought by Dr. Suzanne K. Hansen. Dr. Hansen has been licensed by the California Veterinary Medical Board since June 19th of 1987. Effective September 25th of 2019, a discipline was imposed on Dr. Hansen. She was placed on 5 years probation. And that discipline related to her conviction February 21st of 2018 in Sutter County Superior Court for violation of 23-152A, driving under the influence. And in this case, it was driving under the influence with a blood alcohol level of 0.08 or higher. At that time, it related to an incident of November 21st, 2017, wherein Dr. Hansen was involved with a non-injury collision accident with a CHP vehicle. Her blood alcohol content was tested at a level of 0.256, and she was subsequently convicted of that driving under the influence offense. She was placed on probation for 3 years by the court and a number of other terms, which have all, according to our records, have been complied with. She was, like I said, placed on probation both by the court and placed on probation by the board. And we have, if you look at your petition for early termination packet, we have Exhibit 1, which is the notice of hearing, which set the time and place for this hearing on petition for termination of probation for today's date, time, and place. Exhibit 2, we have the license certification for Dr. Hansen regarding her veterinary license number 9593. Exhibit 3 is the decision and order in the underlying discipline case in the matter of the accusation against Suzanne K. Hansen, and that is board case number 4602018000478. Moving on to Exhibit 4, we have the petitioner's petition for early termination. That packet is dated April 1st, 2022. And there are some following documents in that packet. The first document in that packet is the letter by petitioner's counsel dated April 1st, 2022. You will find that at pages 1 through 15 of Exhibit 4. Then there is petitioner's petition for early termination at pages 16 through 20. There is petitioner's narrative statement and enclosures at pages 21 through 27. We have a following letter by Francine Farrell regarding petitioner's participation in support group. That's at pages 28 through 31. Then following that, we have 6 letters in support of petitioner's petition at pages 32 through 44. Then there is petitioner's relapse prevention plan at pages 45 and 46. A follow-up letter by Leah Willendrup, and that's at page 47 through 48. Then there's the continuing education appendix and related certification or certificates of completion from pages 49 through 68. And then we do have an order of dismissal regarding the underlying criminal conviction in People versus Suzanne Hansen in Sutter County Superior Court, case number CRTR 173419, and that's at pages 69 through 773. And then finally at Exhibit 5, we have the probation compliance report by probation monitor Kathy Budd, dated April 6, 2022. And I would like to simply follow up with the information that I have in relation to that probation monitoring, which was that we have fines and costs relating to probation and probation monitoring of $12,717.50. My records indicate that $7,946 of that have been paid as of April 6th of 2022, leaving a balance of $4,771.50. And that is the basic background of petitioner and her discipline history and the status of her probation at this time. Other than the fines that I have listed, all other terms of probation with the board have been complied with.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Anything else before I turn it over to Mr. Singh?
That's it for now. Thank you.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Mr. Singh, that takes us now to petitioner's case in chief. Please keep in mind that the board does have a copy of the petition and the associated attachments, and the board is particularly interested in matters of rehabilitation rather than relegating the underlying matters that led to license discipline in the first place. With that said, you can proceed as you see fit whenever you are ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. I would like to make a brief opening statement before calling our first witness.
Sure.
Today, the members of the board and ALJ Gavin, you will hear not only from Dr. Suzanne Hansen, who's been licensed by this board for over 35 years. She will briefly describe the conduct which led to the discipline against her license for placement on probation, and probation that is set to expire should she continue her compliance in September of 2024. You will hear Dr. Hansen describe her early efforts in recovery, what worked for her, what did not work so well, and ultimately her breakthrough and commitment to lifelong sobriety following her placement on probation. Those efforts in recovery have been assisted through the Pacific Assistance Group, a program for healthcare professionals. And you will hear today from at least one, if not two, members of the Pacific Assistance Group, Ms. Ann Lieber, who's an LMFT, and Ms. Francine Farrell, who's also an LMFT. You will also hear from at least one of Dr. Hansen's colleagues at VCA Valley Oak Veterinary Center, and time permitting, two of them. Both of them are expected to testify regarding their knowledge of Dr. Hansen's probation, her recovery efforts, and one of those individuals actually serves as her worksite monitor to ensure that she remains committed and accountable to her recovery program. There are no impediments to considering the petition in this matter. More than 2 years have elapsed since Dr. Hansen's probation began. Veterinary doctors, Dr. Gebhardt and Dr. Portillo, authored declarations under the penalty of perjury, certifying that they have personal knowledge of Dr. Hansen's activities since her placement on probation. And Dr. Hansen also satisfactorily completed 3 years of informal criminal probation that was imposed by the Sutter County Superior Court, stemming from the conviction which triggered the original disciplinary action. And you are expected to receive into evidence here today the dismissal of that very conviction signed by a judge from the Sutter County Superior Court. We will, after presenting the aforementioned testimonial and documentary evidence, request that the just over 2 remaining years of Dr. Hansen's board probation be terminated to allow her the freedom to, at the age of 65, she's approaching 65, travel internationally and reduce her practice hours to address the recent return of some very serious health concerns. We thank you all in advance for your thoughtful consideration of what you will hear and see this afternoon. And with that, we would like to call our first witness, licensed marriage and family therapist Ann Lieber, if she is on WebEx at this time.
All right, let me see. Ms. Lieber, are you on? Looking at my participant list.
I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. I can't see you though.
Okay.
There you are.
Okay.
I see you. You're listed as Francine Farrell.
We are both at the same place right now, but I'm Ann Lieber.
Got it. You are Ann Lieber. All right, welcome. Ms. Lieber, you've been called as a witness, so I would like to swear you in. In order to do that, I need you to raise your right hand, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you can put your hand down if you'd like, and I'm going to have you state and spell your name for the record, please.
Ann Lieber, ANN, LEB like boy, ER.
All right, thank you very much. Please follow the following rules when Mr. Singh and then subsequently Mr. Stone or any board member examines you. What I'll need for you to do is just sit patiently and silently until whomever is asking the question has fully posed their question. Then just answer the question that's been asked, nothing more, and then wait patiently and silently for a next question. We'll do that in order so that we don't have any crosstalk, and that way anyone who's asking a question can make sure that the record is complete and contains their full question and your full answer. Mr. Singh, you can take it away whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Lieber.
Good afternoon.
Can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay, great. What is your profession, ma'am?
I'm a licensed marriage family therapist.
And how long have you held a license as a licensed marriage and family therapist?
A little over 30 years.
How do you hold any other license or certifications?
No.
Are you currently employed as a licensed marriage and family therapist?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the nature of your current employment?
I work with Francine, Farrell and Associates, where I do therapy, and also Pacific Assistance Group, where I do case management and also provide facilitation of our health professional support groups.
How long have you been employed in that capacity?
Almost 8 years.
Okay. You have any teaching experience in the areas of counseling?
I have. I taught at California State University, Sacramento for, I think, 8 or 9 years, and at a couple of the local junior colleges.
Okay. Ms. Lieber, did you provide me with a copy of your CV in advance of this hearing?
I did.
Okay. And did I send that back to you with some, probably some page stamps?
I don't recall that. Let me see.
Well, do you have access to your CV now?
I do. Yeah, hold on a second.
Okay, okay. And are there any page stamps at the bottom center of that document?
Yes.
Okay. And can you identify the page stamps on that document?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Okay. And does that appear to be a true and correct copy of your current CV?
Yes.
And does it accurately summarize your employment history, education, and training as an LMFT?
Yes.
Okay. Now, you mentioned that you currently work with the Pacific Assistance or with Francine, Farrell and Associates. How many professionals do you provide assistance to through that employment?
Currently 49.
Okay. And one of those individuals that you assist, does she go by the name of Suzanne Hansen?
Yes, she does.
And when did you first meet Dr. Hansen?
It's been almost 3 years ago. I think it was November of 2019.
Can you recall your first impressions when you met Dr. Hansen?
I can. I would describe her as pretty overwhelmed. When we do an intake with a person, we are giving them enough paperwork, we laugh about it, enough to buy a house. It's really overwhelming. And then we bring them in and we ask them to tell their story, which often can be very difficult for people. And I think with Suzanne, I think she was overwhelmed and frightened and a bit frustrated and maybe even angry. That's what I remember.
Now, that frustration, anger, or feeling overwhelmed, in your impressions, did that dissipate over time?
Oh, absolutely. Suzanne's actually able to talk about that in group and shares that with new members, which I think is a good way of giving them hope, because everyone comes in feeling very overwhelmed and very scared. So she often draws on that experience of how she was feeling and how her demeanor was with us and how it's just changed dramatically over these few years.
Okay. Do you know if Dr. Hansen is participating in her rehabilitative efforts with you voluntarily or through some sort of court or agency order?
My understanding of it is that Suzanne wrote up her own program. I'm not sure that they gave her directives. And so she has submitted that, was my understanding, but there was a voluntary component to it.
Okay. Do you know what the components of her program are? I'm not going to hold you to each and every single one of them.
With the board or with us?
With you.
With us. Yeah, we provide health support groups, and her contract says that she will do one a week. She actually is exceeding that by doing a voluntary group with us a second time, which she's not required to do. She's required monthly to turn in documentation that gives us information about if she's following the contract, if she's actually doing the amount of groups that she says she's going to do. She turns in a monthly report that not only gives us the data, but asks her to assess where she sees herself in terms of her rehabilitation in her program. And then I should also say she's also required then to check in with me. At this point, early on, it was weekly, then monthly, and now she holds herself accountable. So she checks in with me on a quarterly basis. And what I will say about her is that her compliance with her contract with us has been meticulous. She is not a person that I ever need to call or look for information. She always provides it to us in a timely fashion, in a very thorough way, and clearly takes it, the commitment of that, very seriously.
Now, with respect to any sort of randomized drug screenings, alcohol screenings, is that something that you oversee, or is that something that's handled directly through the board?
Through the board.
Okay. Ms. Lieber, do you serve as her case manager on behalf of Francine, Farrell and Associates?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Now, what does it entail to be a particular participant's case manager?
Well, it's my job to hold her accountable early on, and then as time goes by, to watch that she's holding herself accountable. And it's also my job to support her in that process.
Okay. And in serving as her case manager, do do you try to assess how strong a particular participant's recovery program is?
Absolutely.
Okay. And with respect to Dr. Hansen, do you have any opinion on the strength of her recovery program?
I think it's very strong.
Okay. Now, with respect to her meetings, her actual meetings, you mentioned that one is required weekly, and then she also attends one voluntarily. Is that correct?
Her health support professional meetings, yes. She attends one once a week with a group up in Chico area that is facilitated by Larry Collins. And then when COVID hit and we went online, Francine and I were concerned there was not enough additional support to the community in general. So we started another group that was online and available to people just to get extra support. Suzanne joined that voluntarily and actually has now become an extremely active member and respected member of that group. And even though it's a voluntary group, an extra group for her, she comes almost every single week.
Okay. And with respect to the weekly meetings that she actually has with you, would you say that she speaks up often in those meetings?
I would say early on, not so much. Suzanne is a very humble person and actually very shy. So I think the group process, and she was the first to say that, was difficult for her in the beginning. As she's gotten to know people in group, and I think gotten to know me and feel comfortable, I would say she's much more active. And I think does a great job of showing herself in an authentic way and supporting others. And always talks in group in a very recovery-oriented way, which I very much appreciate about her.
Now, when she does speak up during group, when she does share, do you have a sense that her opinions or her stories or whatever she's sharing, that's valued by the other group members?
Oh, absolutely. No question. They actually have commented on that, how much they appreciate her honesty and her integrity and her just being authentic, and also her keen intelligence. And when you get to know her after the shyness, she actually her keen sense of humor as well.
Now, Ms. Lieber, I believe you testified that you've known Dr. Hansen for almost 3 years now. And in the course of knowing her for 3 years, have you found her to be in denial about the need to further her recovery?
Could you ask that again?
Yeah. You testified that you've known Dr. Hansen for about 3 years now, and my question is whether you had any sense that she's in denial about the need for her to be in recovery.
I would say when we first met her, she might have questioned that a bit, as most people do when they come in. If you're asking as of today, I would say absolutely not. I don't see Suzanne and Dr. Hansen in any kind of denial at this point.
Ms. Lieber, have you read the actual stipulated settlement agreement that placed her license to practice veterinary medicine on probation?
Yes.
Okay. And are you aware of the conduct which led to her placement on probation?
Yes.
Okay. And what is your understanding of what that conduct was?
Suzanne had, over the last couple of years prior to that, begun to drink more and more. And I think it was a Thanksgiving celebration, and she got in the car. She'd been drinking, and if I remember correctly, rolled her car into the back of a police car, and so was arrested for a DUI.
Have you found her to take responsibility for that conduct?
Absolutely.
Has Dr. Hansen ever expressed frustration with the board during your interactions with her?
I don't remember, quite honestly, early on. I would say now, not at all. I think she, like many people, is pretty thankful to the board and feels like actually being on probation and having to do this often is a lifesaver, and probably is the thing that helped her face some of her denial. So I would say at this point, absolutely not. Now,
you mentioned just there that she's thankful for the board for being on probation and having to address the issues which led to her probation. At this point in time, do you feel that her recovery efforts are self-motivated?
Yes.
Have you had any concerns about Dr. Hansen being impaired while in group?
Never.
Do you have any opinion on her prognosis for maintaining her sobriety moving forward?
I think your prognosis is excellent.
Is that opinion contingent upon her continuing to be monitored in her recovery by the Veterinary Medical Board?
No.
Why not?
I don't think she has any denial. I think she is very clear about what she has done and what she's been doing and what she continues to do. I think Suzanne's very clear that this is a long-term chronic illness that goes into remission but doesn't get cured. And I think she's very clear that what she needs to do in her life, I think she's learned the skills. I think she is active in AA. And I have heard nothing from her that would make me think any of that would stop. Actually, quite the opposite, because I think she's very much enjoying her life in sobriety and has gratitude for what the program has brought her.
Thank you, Ms. Lieber. I don't have anything else for you at this time, but Deputy Attorney General Jeff Stone might.
All right, thank you, Ms. Lieber. Mr. Stone, any thoughts?
I don't have any questions. Thank you.
All right, then I'm going to go open it up to the board members to see if they have any questions, and I'll start with President Bowler.
I don't have any questions. Thank you for coming today.
Dr. Bradbury?
No questions. Thank you.
Ms. Laredo?
No questions, and thank you for being here today.
Thank you for having me.
Dr. Noland?
No, Your Honor. Thank you.
Ms. Prado?
No questions. Thank you.
And Dr. Solicito?
No questions from me. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your time and testimony, Ms. Lieber. Mr. Singh, you may call your next witness.
Thank you, Your Honor. We next call Ms. Francine Farrell.
Hello.
Right, good afternoon, Ms. Farrell. Hello. I need to swear you in, so please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, you can put your hand down if you'd like. I'll have you state and spell your name for the record, please.
Yes, it's Francine Farrell, Francine Farrell.
All right, thank you very much. Mr. Singh, you can begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Ms. Farrell.
Good afternoon.
Ms. Farrell, what is your profession, ma'am?
I'm a licensed marriage and family therapist and a certified alcohol and drug counselor.
And how long have you been licensed as a marriage and family therapist and held certification as a alcohol and drug counselor?
It's been 33 years now.
Okay. And Ms. Farrell, what is the nature of your current employment?
I own or I have a corporation, Francine Farrell and Associates, and we are a Pacific Assistance Group of Northern California. That is how we're known locally. We provide alcohol and drug monitoring and support, recovery support for physicians and other healthcare professionals in recovery from substance use disorders.
And prior to establishing Pacific Assistance Group, or PAG as I may refer to it today, do you have any other similar employment with regards to recovery monitoring of healthcare professionals?
Yes, I served for about 20 years the California Medical Board as a group facilitator for the diversion program and the Maximus program, and before that the OHS program for other healthcare professionals, including veterinarians. So I was the group facilitator for those organizations for 20 years when we started PAG.
Now, with respect to PAG, are there any requirements or prerequisites for an individual to be accepted into that program?
Essentially, that they're willing to maintain complete abstinence from alcohol and other drugs, and of course, except for those that are legitimately prescribed and so forth, that they're willing to engage in the recovery efforts that we know will help them to be successful in that decision. So it's one thing to want to be sober, it's another thing to be able to succeed at maintaining sobriety. And then also that they, for the most part, attend the health professional support groups. Most people attend twice a week for the first so long, and then it's reduced to once a week. Board referrals are typically only required to attend once a week by the board.
Okay. Can you provide us with either an example or examples of an issue that would result in a professional being terminated from the Pacific Assistance Group?
I think refusing to maintain sobriety would be the number one thing. It's not, fortunately, it's not frequent, but we have had participants who were not willing to engage in recovery efforts, did not think they should have to maintain sobriety, and did not maintain sobriety, so they were terminated from the program. I think that would be the primary reason, just a general refusal to engage in the needed documentation could be another, but that's been, I can't think of an example of someone who's been unwilling to do that.
Now, is Dr. Hansen participating in the Pacific Assistance Group program?
Yes, she is.
Have you had any concerns that Dr. Hansen is presenting with any of those issues or concerns that you just described, which may result in termination?
No, none whatsoever. Dr. Hansen is very compliant, and I would call her meticulously compliant. She gets all of her paperwork in on time, attends the extra groups with Ann Lieber and checks in with her as required. She has worksite monitors. They send their work in, their reports in on time. All of their reports are excellent. Say that she is absolutely a stellar colleague, and they're just really pleased with the work she does and with her change in her as a person. So I've had no concerns whatsoever.
Now, you mentioned Ms. Lieber. Do you at this point in time in Dr. Hansen's participation, do you actually meet with her currently?
With Dr. Hansen?
Correct.
No, I do not. Well, I occasionally will facilitate that Saturday group that she attends, and so I probably see her maybe once a month, either on the telephone or in group, but her main contact for case management is Ms. Lieber.
Do you have discussions with Ms. Lieber or a group facilitator, who I understand is Larry Collins, regarding Dr. Hansen's progress in PAG?
Yes, very regularly. With Ms. Lieber, we probably meet 2 or 3 times a week in person to review cases and talk about the progress people are making. And with Larry Collins, he sends in a written report once a month, and I probably speak to him on average a couple of times a month by telephone, just to those informal conversations where I think more information is passed than a quick written report.
Now, you testified a couple of moments ago about the changes as a person with regard to Dr. Hansen. What were you referring to there?
Well, again, when she first came to the program, I think she was overwhelmed. She was angry. I don't think she believed she needed the kind of help we believed she needed, things like going to AA, getting her meetings verified, getting a sponsor, working the steps, coming to group every week, doing these monthly self-reports. All of those requirements, I think, as far as she was concerned, it's like, well, I will stop drinking, but I kind of don't think she would have been successful with abstinence alone. I think she really needed to change the way she thinks. I think she needed to change the way she feels, and to overcome her shame at what she had done. And that requires really opening up over time. And I've watched her do that. It's, I'll tear up. It's just been such a pleasure to see what she has done with her life. I couldn't be any more pleased to have witnessed it.
Okay. Do you have any sense of what the biggest hurdles or barriers were for Dr. Hansen in terms of her recovery?
I believe first was just how entrenched her substance use disorder was. I mean, she really had come to, how can I say this? They trained me when I started that for somebody who's really drinking alcoholically, alcohol isn't the problem, it's the solution. And, I think it was the only solution she had to her overwhelming grief and shame at how she was drinking and stress. She just didn't, her world had gotten very small, and alcohol had become a dear friend. And I don't think she could envision how she was going to get through the days and weeks and months and years with this loss she bore from the loss of her partner in life. I just think it felt too much. And so I think the barriers were her shyness, her shame, her grief. Those are hard to overcome, but she did it. She fought through it. She spoke in group when she didn't want to at first. She listened attentively when she wasn't ready to speak. And she climbed through it. And I really think she's just in a completely different place today.
Ms. Farrell, did you write a letter in support of Dr. Hansen's petition for early termination of probation?
Yes, I did.
Okay. And did you sign that letter under the penalty of perjury?
Yes, I did.
And did I send a copy of that letter back to you with page stamps in advance of today's hearing?
Yes, you did.
And do you have that before you by any chance?
I do.
Okay. And can you identify the page stamps on that letter?
I'm looking at a copy I printed out. I hope it's the same as the one online. It says Exhibit 4, page 29, 30, and 31.
Okay. And does the document that you have just identified appear to be a true and correct copy of the letter that you wrote on behalf of Dr. Hansen?
Yes, it is a true and correct copy.
And do you stand by the contents of that letter as you're testifying here today?
Yes, I do.
Okay. I'm going to ask you just a couple of questions about this letter.
Yes.
Okay. So on the first page of your letter, you wrote, and I'm paraphrasing here, that Dr. Hansen may have been initially uncertain about the benefits she may get through her participation in PAG beyond compliance with her board probation. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Were you concerned by that initial uncertainty?
I was, and I'll also say that's quite common. So when I say I was concerned, I'm always concerned with the first meeting. I've rarely met the person who said, "Oh, good, I can hardly wait to do everything you want me to do." They, so I was concerned, but not worried. I hoped that I thought she had integrity. She said she would do it, and I hoped that she would, but she was clearly reluctant.
Okay. Now, do you see the next paragraph where you wrote, previous resistance turned into deepening gratitude and acceptance of a new, sober value system and way of life?
Yes.
Okay. So, in your opinion, how did somebody who presented as being uncertain about even needing to participate in a program like PAG go from that point to having a deepening gratitude for it?
I think in most people with a substance use disorder, insight follows behavior change. It doesn't precede it. So people don't have a flash of insight and decide to go to AA and decide to talk in group. They simply gradually change their behaviors. And as those behaviors change, and by the way, as the pleasure center of the brain reactivates and the brain chemistry clears out and they become more clear-headed, they can look back and say, wow, I was in a terrible spot and I don't want to be back there. And furthermore, my life is better now than it was when I was drinking. And so alcohol really wasn't my BFF, my best friend. Alcohol really was trying to kill me. It was trying to take my life. Even before it killed me, it wanted me to lose my license. It wanted me to lose my joy for life. And I think once they change those behaviors and engage in the recovery efforts, including work, she works a good 12-step program, working the steps, taking a personal moral inventory of self, making amends. Each one of those steps, which is fearful. It's hard to go to work and to tell people you work with that you have a problem and you know it. And yet she did it. And I think she did it with the support of the group of PAG and of all of us, but she did it. And when you do those things, then you gain more and more insight and more self-worth and more self-confidence. And I think her life is just so much better today than it was back then, that she would not want to go back to that.
Okay. One last question about your letter, and this is page 2, should be stamped as Exhibit 4, page 30, second paragraph from the bottom. You wrote at the end of that paragraph that Dr. Hansen is clearly respected and appreciated by fellow group members. And have group members shared that with you?
Yes, and with Ann Lieber, who, as I said, shares with me every week, and with her in group. I think, it's just, she is one of the leaders in the group now, and she clearly is very well respected in group.
Okay. All right, Ms. Farrell. Did I also, enough questions about your letter, did I also send you a copy of your CV in advance of today's hearing?
Yes, I believe you did. I met in documents.
And do you have that before you by any chance?
Give me 1 second. Let me download that. Yes, I do now.
Okay. And just to make sure we're looking at the same document, does it have stamps B1 through B4?
Yes.
Okay. And is what you have identified as B1 through B4 appear to be a true and correct copy of your CV?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Ms. Farrell, do you have any recommendations for Dr. Hansen in terms of furthering her recovery?
I really think she'll keep doing what she is doing, attending AA. I think she'll continue with the health professional support group. I really think she knows what to do now and is motivated to stay sober.
Thank you. Ms. Farrell, I don't have any other questions for you, but Deputy Attorney General Stone might, so hang tight.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Stone, any thoughts?
I have just a couple of questions. Thank you. Are you involved in the weekly group therapy? Are you there, personally present?
I am there. I facilitate 3 of our groups, and Ms. Lieber facilitates 2. And we sometimes take over each other's group from week to week so that we're all engaged with all of the participants. So yes, I do personally facilitate the groups, but not the Saturday morning group. Primarily, that is Ms. Lieber.
Okay, so when Dr. Hansen does the group therapy, it's either you or Ms. Lieber that is personally present?
Yes.
Okay, so sometimes it's you and sometimes it's her?
Correct.
Okay. And then approximately how many people are in the group?
I believe the Saturday morning group has about 12 people in it.
And Dr. Hansen is in the Saturday group?
Yes, and she is also in Larry Collins' group in Chico every week.
And is Larry Collins affiliated with you?
Larry Collins is an independent group facilitator for Pacific Assistance Group and for the Maximus program, for the Veterinary Medical Board program.
Okay. And that is another group therapy
Yes.
session that Dr. Hansen attends?
Yes, it is.
And what's your understanding of Dr. Hansen's involvement with Alcoholics Anonymous? Is that something she self-reports to you, or do you have any other information regarding her participation other than as reported by her?
Well, she does verify her meetings with a meeting verification log. I have not looked at one recently and primarily does that case management, but typically a participant, if it's an online meeting, will upload will have it verified through an email from the person conducting the meeting. If it's in person, they will have the secretary of the meeting sign the card. Now, that's the official verification of meeting attendance. That said, I've done this for 33 years, and anybody can have anybody sign anything in the parking lot or write upside down or scribble. The way we verify meeting attendance is by what she shares, by how she thinks. When people spontaneously talk about things like, my best day drunk was not as good as my worst day sober, that means they've been going to meetings, they've been listening. When they talk about making amends at work, when they make amends at work, that's not something people do unless they're working a program and they understand the 9th step is to make amends. And so the real way we verify meetings, we make them do the paperwork, but we really want to hear that the way they're thinking and interacting with people is changing. And that's, I think, how we really verify meetings.
Do you know if Dr. Hansen has essentially completed the 12 steps, or do you know where she is in that program?
Yes, I believe she has. People often cycle through the steps more than once, but I know she did her 9th. I think she does her 10, 11, and 12. Now the 12th step is carrying the message. Some people go to sponsorship to do that. Some people help newcomers, such as she does in our groups. I know I heard from, or I think I read in one of the letters that she did go into work and make amends and talk with everybody at work. So yeah, I think she's been through the steps at least once.
Thank you. That's all I have.
You're welcome.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. That takes us then to our board members. President Bowler, any questions?
No, but I just want to thank you for what you and your colleagues are doing, and thank you for coming today.
Thank you. Appreciate the opportunity.
Dr. Bradbury?
No, Your Honor, but I also just wanted to thank you, and that's it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Laredo?
No questions, thank you.
Dr. Noland?
No questions, thanks.
Ms. Prado?
No questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
And Dr. Solicito?
No questions.
All right, thank you for your time and testimony, Ms. Farrell. You're excused as a witness.
Thank you.
All right. Mr. Singh, do you have any other witnesses?
Yes, we do. Before we do that, Your Honor, in terms of moving in exhibits, it's a little bit different posture of proceeding than I'm accustomed to. Would now be the appropriate time, considering they both just testified, or can we handle that at the end?
It's completely up to you. In fact, Mr. Stone, I should note that you took us through the petition packet, but none of those are moved into evidence or received into evidence yet. So there'll be a time for that later. And Mr. Singh, you can either do it then or you can do it now, whichever you prefer.
Okay. If there's going to be time towards the end, we'll just take care of all that at the end. Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
I would now like to call Dr. Daniel Gebhardt as a witness. Not sure if he's signed into WebEx or if I need to contact him.
I see him on the participant list, Dr. Gebhardt.
Oh, great.
Looks like you are there. Can you hear me okay, sir? You are maybe
You're
muted.
muted.
Still muted.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Perfect.
All right, very good. Were you able to sit through the testimony of the previous witnesses?
Through Francine's.
Okay, so follow her example and just listen to the question that's posed, answer just that question, and then wait for a new question. I will swear you in if you just wouldn't mind raising your right hand.
Okay.
Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
All right, you can put your hand down if you'd like, and I'll have you state and spell your name for the record, please.
My name is Daniel. Last name is Gebhardt, Gebhart, and it's Dr. Gebhardt.
Very good. Thank you very much, Dr. Gebhardt. Mr. Singh, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Gebhardt.
Good afternoon. How you guys doing?
Now, are you currently licensed as a veterinarian, doctor?
Correct.
And is your license in good standing with the board?
Correct.
Have you ever had your license to practice veterinary medicine disciplined by the Veterinary Medical Board?
No, I haven't.
What's the nature of your current employment?
I am the co-medical director at VCA Valley Oak Veterinary Center in Chico, California.
And at VCA Valley Oak Veterinary Center in Chico, do you employ or work with a veterinarian by the name of Dr. Suzanne Hansen?
Yes, I do.
How long have you worked with Dr. Hansen?
I have worked with Dr. Hansen since 2012, so about 10 years.
Now, what impressions can you provide regarding her skill and ability as a veterinarian?
Dr. Hansen is a very skilled surgeon. She's a great general practice surgeon doing spays and neuters and mass removals, lacerations. She is a very efficient doctor as well, not with just GP general practice appointments, but also some emergency work as well. But she is a very caring and compassionate veterinarian and knowledgeable as well as efficient. So.
Dr. Gebhardt, are you aware that Dr. Hansen is on probation before the Veterinary Medical Board?
Yes, I am.
And what's your understanding as to why she is on probation?
She was on probation for an alcohol-related incident and DUI and an accident from that.
How were you made aware that she's on probation?
I was made aware by Dr. Hansen herself. She discussed with me and Dr. Portillo in private, and discussed that she had, she was an alcoholic and she had was driving under the influence at the time and gotten into an accident.
Dr. Gebhardt, have you seen a copy of her actual probation agreement with the Veterinary Medical Board?
I haven't, per se, no.
Okay. Dr. Gebhardt, have you had any, or scratch that. With respect to her notifying you that she is on probation, is that something that she did just with you and the other doctor you referenced, or did she notify other employees at VCA Valley Oak?
So first she notified me and Dr. Portillo, and then we had a doctor's meeting, and Dr. Hansen got up in front of everybody and kind of discussed what happened and the related incident. And then she was an alcoholic and was going to rehab for it at the time, starting right after that accident happened.
Dr. Gebhardt, have you had any concerns that Dr. Hansen is impaired at work?
No, I never have.
Okay. Now, have you noticed any changes in Dr. Hansen since she began her probation with the board?
Yes. Since she started, AA and working on her sobriety, her demeanor's been so much improved. She's more confident. She's very collegial with other staff members and doctors. She's on time. She stays late if she needs to. She helps out when she needs to. And just had a positive attitude overall. And I've noticed a pretty big improvement since her sobriety. I was quite impressed.
As a fellow member of the profession, do you feel that she's a better veterinarian now than before she became sober?
I do, absolutely. I think she's grown as a veterinarian, and she's continuing to learn and learn from her other colleagues in the hospital, as well as, continuing education. She's definitely become a better doctor, I think.
Dr. Gebhardt, did you write a letter on Dr. Hansen's behalf in support of her efforts for early termination of probation?
Yes, I did.
And did you sign that letter under the penalty of perjury?
Yes, I did.
And did I send that letter back to you with page stamps towards the bottom right-hand corner?
Yeah, I can pull it up, but...
Okay, great. Yeah, please let us know when you have that before you.
Yes, I've got that.
Can you identify the page stamps?
Yeah, it is. The first one is EXH.4, comma P.033. And then, let me go to the other one. Hold on. Yeah, that's what I have on there for both of them.
So would it be Exhibit 4, page 33, and Exhibit 4, page 34?
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Yep.
All right. And have you had a chance to review your letter in advance of testifying here today?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And do you stand by the contents of that letter?
I do.
Okay. And which is what you identified as Exhibit 4, page 33, and Exhibit 4, page 34, does that appear to be a true and correct copy of the letter that you wrote on behalf of Dr. Hansen?
Yes, it is.
Okay, great. Now, I'm going to ask you just a few questions about your letter. First page, so Exhibit 4, page 33, second full paragraph. You describe how Dr. Hansen apologized in front of her colleagues about being an alcoholic and what she was dealing with in her personal life. Do you see that?
Yes.
And is that what you were just referencing in your testimony about her apologizing at a doctor's meeting?
Yes.
And what sort of impression did that leave on you that she got up in front of her colleagues at a doctor's meeting to apologize?
Well, I think it took a lot of courage. We probably had 18 or 20 of us there that day. And she spoke first before the doctor's meeting started. And she told us about her accident and how she's an alcoholic. And then she just apologized to everybody and discussed, kind of what she went through and, what she felt as far as, she wasn't giving it her all at work. She wasn't as engaged as she would have liked to been. And she was very remorseful during that. When she talked to all the doctors, and it kind of hit, it kind of hit home just because I've other people in my family and professions and stuff like that, are alcoholics. They're sober now, but it takes a lot of courage to get up in front of a big group of people and discuss, a major problem, like being an alcoholic and, how you hurt others or you weren't there for them at work and things like that. And to her to go through that and discuss that with everybody was, impressive. I was kind of taken aback by it, and other doctors as well. And a lot of us kind of had tears in our eyes, and with what she had to go through prior, not just with alcoholism, but caring for a significant other, and she kind of faced with that. But everybody was, impressed that she had the courage to get up there and discuss that with our whole team.
Dr. Gebhardt, are you familiar with Dr. Hansen's reputation in the veterinary community, particularly up there in Chico?
I am. She, she has a good following of people. She's been in that community for, 30 years. And she's, part of the treasurer of the Northern California, veterinary medical group. And volunteers her time, at, the Humane Society, doing spays and neuters and helps them when they bring in animals to our facility, and has helped, a lot during the fires that we had. But she has a great reputation. She was always at Journal Club when we'd have it once a month, discussing cases and journal articles with other doctors from the area.
One last question about your letter, and this is on page 2, so Exhibit 4, page 34. You wrote that Dr. Hansen has gone above and beyond while on probation. How are you familiar with Dr. Hansen's level of compliance with her probation conditions?
I get a email quarterly from Francine, and it's a questionnaire. You know, how many times I see Dr. Hansen? If is there any change in demeanor? Is she showing up to work on time? Does she have a good attitude? All those questions that are associated with the probation kind of questionnaire. So I fill that out quarterly. And during the time I've done that over the last few years, she's remained sober. She attends AA meetings. She's shows to work up on time. She stays late if she needs to. She helps out when needed. She has a great attitude. She gets along with everybody very well. Has a good client following, and she's just been a lot more of a happy person to be around at work, and it shows, day to day.
Dr. Gebhardt, do you serve as a worksite monitor for Dr. Hansen's recovery?
Yes.
And is it in that capacity that you fill out those quarterly reports that you just described?
Correct.
Okay. Dr. Gebhardt, do you endorse Dr. Hansen's petition for early termination of probation?
Absolutely, 100%.
Do you have any concerns that she may relapse without the board's formal supervision?
I don't.
Why not?
She's shown, over the last 3 years, she's remained sober. She's been a great asset at work. She's continuing the steps, and I just don't see her going back to being an alcoholic. I think she's done great over the last few years, so I don't see her taking a step back at all.
Thank you, Doctor. I don't have any further questions for you, but the others who are here participating in this hearing might. So hang tight, okay?
Okay, sounds good.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Stone, any cross?
I have a couple of questions. Thank you. I think you mentioned that you've worked with Dr. Hansen since approximately 2012.
Yes.
And you've talked a little bit about a difference sort of that you've noticed in her from before she addressed her alcoholism and the problems that she had with her DUI and with the board in regard to that. Prior to when that was brought to your attention, did you ever have any indications that she was an alcoholic or had a problem with alcohol or being under the influence of alcohol at any time?
A little bit. We would have like dinners, veterinary dinners and stuff like that, and then doctor meetings, and the dinners she did tend to drink a little. Noticed that she was drinking a little bit too much, and she would kind of slur her words a little bit and things like that. Yes, I did notice that.
And was she late for work or otherwise have any attendance or any other types of issues work related?
Yeah, she'd come into late to work occasionally. She missed some shifts that she was supposed to pick up, and then would leave early, kind of just check out early, even though there was other emergencies to see or cases to see, without kind of checking in with anybody or being as helpful as she is now.
And then I think you've described, since she addressed the issue with you all, that her general demeanor, attitude, and performance at work has improved?
Yes. I would say she's had a great improvement. She's very positive. She didn't used to be. She used to be a lot more kind of grumpy at work and things like that when she was drinking. But she's had a positive attitude. She jokes around. She's very helpful. Nice to the staff. She stays late. She helps out kind of whenever needed. So.
And I think you mentioned work she does regarding her sobriety with Alcoholics Anonymous meetings. Is that right?
Yes.
And is that information that she tells you?
She tells me that she goes to weekly meetings, but doesn't like dive into anything about it.
So your understanding regarding her treatment or therapy with AA and otherwise is basically what she tells you?
Yes.
Okay. I don't have anything further. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. That brings us then to our board members. President Bowler, any questions?
I have no questions. Thank you.
Dr. Bradbury?
No, thank you, Dr. Gephardt.
Thank you.
Ms. Laredo?
No questions. Thank you.
Dr. Nolan?
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Prado?
No questions, thank you.
And Dr. Solicito?
No questions, thank you.
All right, Mr. Singh, any follow-up questions?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, thank you for your time and testimony, Dr. Gephardt. You are released as a witness.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Mr. Singh, do you have additional witnesses besides petitioner?
Yes, we have Dr. Erin Portillo, if she's on, or if, yes, I see her.
Okay, I see that she is on. President Bowler, I'll leave it to you to decide when the appropriate time for an afternoon break is. I'm fine if you want to keep going. I'm fine if you want to take a break now. I'll leave it to you.
I think, do you want to take a break? No. Yeah, I think we could keep going where it sounds like we're winding down on the witnesses.
Okay, very good. Ms. Portillo, can you hear me okay? Or Dr. Portillo, I should say.
I think she's on mute.
That too. Dr. Portillo, if you're hearing on when the appropriate time for an afternoon break, I'm fine if you want to take a break now. Everyone's favorite sound is their own voice repeated back to them.
Ms. Portillo, you may want to either connect your audio on a phone or put in headphones so then we don't have the feedback from the mic catching on your speakers.
Okay.
I can hear you. You can hear us?
Dr. Portillo, if you're hearing on the computer,
I'm going to stand.
Their own repeated back.
Ms. Portillo, we will want to connect your audio. It looks like Ms. Portillo might be having like a significant delay on her WebEx. We may have to wait a couple minutes for this message to get to her, but Ms. Portillo, you may want to try logging back into the WebEx and see if that fixes it. You may also want to check that your internet connection is good. So we'll give it a moment. Okay, I see Ms. Portillo has joined in another session, so let me go ahead and switch which one is up in the panelist. Okay, and Ms. Portillo, are you able to hear me and unmute?
Yeah.
Okay, great, and it doesn't sound like we have any echo, so I think we're good.
All right, thank you for our moderator's help on that. Dr. Portillo, can you hear me okay?
I hear you.
Okay. My name is Sean Gavin. I'm the judge presiding over this case. I'm going to swear you in and then give the attorneys a chance to ask you some questions. Can I have you raise your right hand and let me know when you've done so?
Yes. Okay, I see Ms. Portillo has joined in another session, so let me go ahead and switch which one is up in the panelist. Ms. Portillo, you may want to log out of your computer session. It sounds like that one's still going.
I did. Okay. How's that?
Much better, thank you.
Okay.
Okay, very good. Thank you, Dr. Portillo. I can see you.
Yay.
Okay, very good. Success. Just go ahead and raise your right hand so we can swear you in. All right. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right. You can put your hand down if you'd like. I'll have you state and spell your name for the record, please.
My name is Erin Portillo, ErinPortillo.
All right. Thank you. It looks like you may be at a clinic presently.
Yes.
All right. So I would just invite the attorneys to keep Dr. Portillo's time and other time commitments in mind as they begin their questioning. And Mr. Singh, you can begin as you see fit.
Thank you, Your Honor. Good afternoon, Dr. Portillo.
Good afternoon.
I'll try to get you back to work relatively quickly.
Thank you.
How long have you held a license as a veterinarian?
Since 2002.
Okay. And have you ever had your license disciplined by the Veterinary Medical Board?
No, sir.
Okay. I think we saw your scrubs there, but I still have to ask, where are you currently employed?
VCA Valley Oak Veterinary Center in Chico, California.
Okay. And is there a veterinarian by the name of Dr. Suzanne Hansen who works there?
Yes.
Okay. And how long have you worked with Dr. Hansen?
Since 2007.
Are you aware that she's on probation with the Veterinary Medical Board?
I'm aware.
And what's your understanding as to why she's on probation?
She was convicted of a DUI.
Did Dr. Hansen personally tell you that?
I believe I did find out before she told me.
And did she also personally tell you?
She also did personally tell me, yes.
Okay. And how did you find out before she personally told you?
I don't remember the exact details. I believe her family may have called looking for her when she missed her flight. And so I think that's when we found out.
Okay. All right. Dr. Portillo, did you write a letter on Dr. Hansen's behalf in support of her efforts for early termination of probation?
I did.
And did you sign that under the penalty of perjury?
Yes, sir.
Okay. And did I send that back to you with a page stamp on it?
Yes.
And do you have access to that by any chance?
I do.
Okay. And can you please identify the page stamp on that letter?
It looks like Exhibit 4, page 35.
And have you had an opportunity to review that before testifying here today?
Yes, sir.
And do you stand by the contents of your letter?
Yes.
And does it appear to be a true and correct copy of the letter that you wrote on Dr. Hansen's behalf?
Yes, it does.
I see here that you wrote that you've worked closely with Dr. Hansen on numerous cases. In working closely with Dr. Hansen, have you ever suspected that she was under the influence of alcohol or any other substance?
Never during working hours, no.
Now directing your attention to the third paragraph of your letter, you see where you wrote about a very public apology that Dr. Hansen made at a monthly doctor meeting?
Yes.
Okay. And can you elaborate on that for us, please?
Yes. So when we were planning it, she had said she wanted to make a statement to the entire doctor team, where she publicly apologized to all of us for what happened and how her behavior influenced the clinic, etc. And then I believe she did also then publicly apologize to the staff as well at a different occasion.
Now, just a couple more questions. The last few sentences of the third paragraph of your letter, you write, I admire the grace and dignity she has shown during her recovery and probation. She asks for help when needed and communicates with us regularly. What sort of help does Dr. Hansen ask for with respect to her recovery and probation?
For the most part, it has to do with her schedule. I do the doctor's scheduling at this practice, and I've been working with her that she works, the hours that she works, as well as what she do as far as cases she's able to see, etc.
And the help that she asks for, does that suggest to you that she prioritizes her recovery?
Dr. Portillo, at least I'll speak for myself. I didn't hear an answer.
Oh, I'm sorry. I said I don't know what happened. I do all the scheduling at BC Valley Oak. So most of what I, as far as the accommodations we have made with her, is working on her schedule, days she's able to work, so she's able to make her meetings, as well as any what she's able to do at the clinic, and as far as the cases she's able to see, etc.
All right,
And
Mr. Singh, can you repose your next question then?
Sure. Dr. Portillo, so that she asks for accommodations in terms of scheduling so she can attend meetings, does that suggest to you that she prioritizes her recovery?
Absolutely.
Dr. Portillo, have you seen a copy of her probation agreement with the Veterinary Medical Board?
I believe I have seen a copy. I think I was given one when it was first issued.
Okay. Dr. Portillo, do you endorse Dr. Hansen's petition for early termination of probation?
Yes, I do.
Do you have any concerns she may relapse without the board's formal supervision?
I do not.
And why not?
She's been very, very committed to this, making adjustments, not like I said, to her schedule and what she's able to do. She's been very forthcoming. Dr. Hansen's a very private person, and she's been very forthcoming with how things are going, what's been happening with her recovery and her probation, etc., with both Dr. Gephardt, myself, and our hospital manager. So no, I don't have any concerns that she'll continue on this same path.
Thank you, Dr. Portillo. I don't have any more questions, but hang tight for a minute because others might, okay?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Stone, any cross?
No questions. Thank you.
All right, that takes us into our board members. Dr. Bowler, any questions?
No, thank you. And unfortunately, I'm not a doctor.
I just realized I said doctor instead of president. Maybe I need a break. Dr. Bradbury, any questions for this witness?
No, thank you.
Ms. Laredo,
No questions, thank you.
Dr. Noland,
No questions, thank you.
Ms. Prado,
None.
Dr. Solacito.
No questions, thank you.
All right, thank you very much, Dr. Portillo, for your time and testimony. You are excused as a witness.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, Mr. Singh, any other witnesses?
It's just going to be Dr. Hansen, and if anybody wants to take a break, it might be the appropriate time, as that's going to be a bit lengthier.
Okay, President Bowler, I'll leave that up to you.
Yes, I think then, given that statement, I think we should take a brief break, 5-10 minutes. I know we still have more work. We have another petition and other work to do, so let's see, what time is it? Yeah, so why don't we come back at 2:45, a little less than 10 minutes.
Okay, very good. We are off the record until 2:45.
Oh, I'm sorry. I thought all right, yeah, sorry. I'm sorry, we're all present and accounted for, Your Honor. Sorry about that.
Not to worry. If it's convenient for you and you're ready to reconvene the meeting, then I'll just check to make sure that Mr. Singh and Mr. Stone are ready. We can go back on the record.
We're ready, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Stone, I saw you wave, which I think means it's ready. Okay.
Ready, Your Honor. Thank you.
All right, and President Bowler, you're ready to go back on?
Yes, yes.
All right. We are back on the record after a brief break. We still have all members present. And Mr. Singh, you were ready to call the petitioner as your next witness.
Yes, Your Honor, we are going to call Dr. Suzanne Hansen as our last witness.
Okay, Dr. Hansen, I'd like for you to raise your right hand so I can swear you in, please. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, very good. You can put your hand down if you'd like. I believe we have your name spelled in the paperwork, so Mr. Singh, you may begin whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Your Honor. Dr. Hansen, in what year did you obtain your license to practice veterinary medicine?
1987.
When did you decide that you wanted to pursue a career in veterinary medicine?
As a young person, like a lot of veterinarians and like a lot of people, I enjoyed animals. We had pets growing up. But then as I started schooling and high school and college, realized that I enjoyed science, also the investigative nature of it. And so combining the two, it was kind of natural to head towards veterinary medicine.
Where did you complete your undergraduate coursework?
At Cal State Long Beach.
And how about your graduate coursework?
At UC Davis.
And what year did you land your first job as a veterinarian?
1987.
And where was that?
At Loomis Basin Veterinary Clinic.
And how long did you practice there?
About 4 years.
4 years, that'll put us at 1991. Did you obtain new employment in the profession at that time?
I did. I was going to be moving up to Chico, and I went to work for Mangrove Veterinary Hospital.
How long were you at Mangrove?
About 3 years.
Did you, at some point, start your own practice in Chico?
I did. In 1996, another veterinarian had started a small urgent care practice in town and wanted to sell it to move on, and I agreed to buy that practice.
And how long did you stay in solo practice?
11 years.
And then after those 11 years, what was your next place of employment in the profession?
I sold the practice in 2007 to the new owners of Mangrove Veterinary Hospital and went to work for them.
And does Mangrove Veterinary Hospital still exist?
It has now morphed into VCA Valley Oak Veterinary Center. It's in a new location in a new purpose-built building and under new management. They were purchased by VCA, I think, in 2016.
And is that where you're employed now?
Correct.
Approximately how many hours do you work each week?
About 40, give or take.
And aside from your employment with VCA Valley Oak Veterinary Center, are you employed in any other veterinary capacity?
Yes, I work 1 day a week for the SPCA in Orville.
Do you lend your veterinary services in a volunteer capacity as well?
I do. I've been helping our city shelter, municipal shelter, in a casual way, volunteering for probably 15 or 20 years.
Now, we've had some testimony on the subject, but I do want to ask you directly. Is your employer aware that you are on probation with the board?
They are.
And did you personally make your employer aware that you're on probation?
I did.
What was that experience like, notifying your employer that your license to practice veterinary medicine is on probation?
Well, they'd already known that I received the DUI. I told them, I think in late 2019, or 2017 rather, when the DUI occurred. I learned about the probation in spring of 2019 and told them soon thereafter. It was shameful, embarrassing, having to revisit the whole DUI episode again and letting them know that their employee and them a little bit were going to have this extra situation to deal with.
And did your employer take any sort of employment consequence against you after you notified them that you're on probation?
They did not. I believe they consulted with their managers, and gratefully, I was allowed to continue to work for them.
Has your employer been supportive of your recovery efforts?
Very much so.
Were you here when Dr. Gebhardt testified just a few minutes ago?
I was.
Okay. And does he serve as your worksite monitor?
He does.
Okay. And is there anybody else who serves as your worksite monitor?
Gianna Thompson, who is our practice manager.
And is having a worksite monitor, is that something that's required by the terms of your probation with the board?
It's one of the suggested things that could be part of a rehabilitation program, but it's not required.
Why did you institute it then?
I thought it would provide myself and the board with another layer of accountability during my time of probation.
Now, Doctor, aside from the probation that you now seek to terminate, have you ever before been disciplined by the Veterinary Medical Board?
Not disciplined, no. I did receive a citation and a fine.
And when was that citation and fine?
That was in 2005.
Was that the result of a complaint filed against your veterinary license?
It was the result of a complaint filed by a former employee against my registered vet tech.
Is this back when you were in solo practice?
Correct.
And did you have to pay a fine?
I did.
And did you make full payment of that fine?
I did.
Since that time, have you had, aside from probation, have you had any discipline taken against your license?
Not that I'm aware of.
Right. Doctor, what was the conduct that led to the board's disciplinary action, which resulted in your license being placed on probation?
I was driving to Sacramento one morning on my way to the airport. I'd been drinking the night before, and that morning I was stopped at a stoplight in Yuba City and rolled forward into what turned out to be a CHP vehicle. I was subsequently breathalyzed, arrested, spent the day in jail.
Were you convicted of an offense afterwards?
I was convicted of a misdemeanor.
Was that your first arrest and conviction?
Yes.
Have you since had any arrest or conviction?
No.
Doctor, was this the only time that you had operated a motor vehicle after consuming alcohol?
No.
Have you since that time operated a motor vehicle after consuming any amount of alcohol?
I have not.
Doctor, can you recall what your criminal sentence was after you were convicted of that misdemeanor?
I was placed on probation by Sutter County Court for 3 years. There were various fines and fees, 48 hours or 2 days of volunteer work, part of which was satisfied by the day I spent in jail, and I spent a day at the Aavsb Sutter SPCA. My license, my driver's license, was completely restricted for 1 month, so I could not drive at all. And then for 6 months after that, the license was still restricted, but I could drive to work. I believe that's all.
Did you successfully complete your criminal probation?
I did.
Have you since had that lone conviction on your record dismissed?
I have.
When did that occur?
January of this year.
Did you provide the board with the order of dismissal from the Sutter County Superior Court?
I did.
I'm going to direct your attention to something in the bigger exhibit binder. It should be within Exhibit 4, and particularly the documents that are page stamped as 070 through 073.
I have it here.
Have you seen this document before?
I have.
And can you identify what this document is?
It's an order for dismissal.
And is that from the Sutter County Superior Court?
Yes, it is.
And does this appear to be a true and correct copy of the order of dismissal from the Sutter County Superior Court of the misdemeanor DUI conviction you sustained?
It does.
Doctor, when you sustained this arrest, did you recognize you were an alcoholic?
No, I had not considered that.
Yep. In hindsight, have you come to appreciate why you did not recognize you were an alcoholic at the time?
Yes. There's a great deal of denial that was involved with my drinking. If I would have observed things that I was doing in another person, I certainly would have recognized it, but I didn't have the level of insight. At the time, my brain function was clouded, and as I said, I was denying, I wasn't even observing or thoughtfully observing myself and my behaviors.
Doctor, you wrote a statement to the board which accompanied your petition for early termination, is that correct?
Correct.
And in that statement, did you describe how you felt after your arrest?
I did.
How about today? How do you now view that arrest?
It was still an awful and shameful moment, very embarrassing, frightening. Yes, it still is not a pleasant experience, but I realized that it was actually the first little step forward in my path to recovery.
Doctor, did you do any alcohol treatment or alcohol counseling after the arrest or after the conviction?
I did. In February of 2018, I was in a residential treatment program in Calistoga.
What was that experience like?
I enjoyed it. It was peaceful, thoughtful. I learned a lot about the disease of addiction, was further introduced to the 12 steps. I had time just to focus on myself. I started exercising. I lost some weight. My blood pressure went down. So all in all, it was a positive, enjoyable experience.
Did you provide the board with a letter from that treatment facility confirming your residential rehab?
I did.
I'm going to direct your attention now. We're staying within Exhibit 4, and it's particularly the page that's stamped as 048.
I have it.
Have you seen this document before?
I have.
Can you tell us what this document is?
This is a letter from Duffy's in Calistoga stating that I was in a residential program there for a month in 2018, and it outlines the types of programs that they have and is signed by one of their managers.
Is that the same facility that you just described as having a completed residential rehab in?
Yes, it is.
And does this appear to be a true and correct copy of the letter confirming your participation in that inpatient rehab?
It does.
Doctor, were you able to maintain your sobriety when you returned home from Duffy's?
I was not. As I mentioned before, even though I went willingly to the rehab program, I was not ready to admit to myself that I had a problem, that I had a chronic disease. I do believe during that time I did start going to AA meetings locally, but I did not stop drinking.
Did you have any period of sustained sobriety after completing the Duffy's program and before starting the board's probation?
I did. Later on in 2018, I was sober from July to December. I was going to AA meetings at that time. I even traveled and did not drink. But then around Christmas of 2018, it was the holidays, I was cooking, I brought alcohol into the house for cooking, and that was that.
Can you recall when you received the board's accusation issued against your license?
I believe it was in April of 2019.
Were you expecting that accusation?
I wasn't. I was completely blindsided by it.
Was the accusation based on your arrest and conviction, or was there other conduct alleged?
It was the arrest and conviction.
And did the accusation proceed to a contested hearing, or was it settled?
It was settled by my local attorney.
Is that how you landed on the board's probation?
Correct.
When did your probation begin?
September 25th of 2019.
And what are the conditions of your board probation?
To not use drugs or alcohol, to obey all laws, to obey the conditions of my probation, to file quarterly reports with the board, to participate in a rehabilitation program of my choosing, to notify my employer and all other certificated staff that I am on probation, to notify the board of any changes of address or employment, to work a minimum, it's either 24, 25 hours a week, to submit to random bodily fluid analysis, and something called tolling, which is confusing. I'll let the board explain that if they want to.
Are you in compliance with the terms and conditions of your probation?
I've not completed the payment of fines, but everything else, yes.
Now, you mentioned submitting yourself to bodily fluid testing. Have you ever missed a test?
I've not.
Have you ever submitted a positive or dirty test?
I've not.
Have you ever submitted a diluted specimen?
No.
Just ballpark, approximately how many times have you actually tested since you began probation?
About 3 to 4 times a month.
3 to 4 times a month. Now, of the probation conditions you just described, what has been the most difficult for you to comply with?
Probably the restriction on my movement related to the daily check-ins and random testing. There's no accommodation for international travel, and domestic travel is awkward. I need to be within reach of a regional testing center. Also, the mandatory minimum work requirement. As I approach retirement, that might become more of a challenge.
Now, in describing your probation conditions, you mentioned a recovery program of your choosing, correct?
Yes.
And what's the recovery program that you chose?
There are a couple. I do participate in Alcoholics Anonymous, the classic 12-step program. But as described by Ms. Farrell and Ms. Lieber, I voluntarily joined PAG, Pacific Assistance Group, to help with my recovery, to give myself a better chance at personal recovery. I put in place I had Mrs. Lieber and Farrell put in place workplace monitors.
Why PAG of the various options that were available to you?
I was made aware of PAG through Mr. Collins, the local facilitator of PAG. I'd met him prior as a counselor, as a NFT. He told me about PAG, that he ran a group there in Chico, described what PAG was, ongoing recovery program for professionals. I thought that sounded like a good idea. And so I expressed to him my interest in joining.
Do you intend to continue your participation in PAG irrespective of the outcome of today's hearing?
I do. It's very helpful for me. I frankly enjoy the meetings. I get a lot out of them. I'm very comfortable sharing amongst the people that I've met in those groups. A little bit more comfortable than in regular AA meetings. Everyone in the group is highly motivated. We're all licensed professionals. We have a lot to lose if we were to lose our licenses or to succumb to our disease. The groups are also, the fact that the groups are facilitated means that there can be back and forth between the participants, what in AA they would call crosstalk. But that's managed by the facilitator, so it's done on a very friendly basis. So yes, that's something I want to continue on my own.
How long do you plan to continue participating in PAG, irrespective of the outcome of today's hearing?
I believe I signed a 5-year contract with them, which pretty much matches the duration of my probation. So I think that was stated to be September of 2024. Some of it will depend if I remain in California. Ms. Farrell has a national license. Ms. Lieber does not, so I might need to change groups within PAG, but I don't, it's open-ended. There's a participant that I see almost every week who's been with PAG probably 15 years, and he finds it very beneficial.
You mentioned you signed a 5-year agreement. What are the conditions or requirements of your agreement?
To go to at least one meeting or one group a week, which that's my local group in Chico with Mr. Collins. And then, as Francine and Ann mentioned, I also voluntarily go to their Saturday group. They require me to go to 3 to 4 AA meetings a week, which are documented. In addition to what Francine described, there's an app on my phone that uses a GPS monitor, so it can show that I'm like not in my house. And I put in the location of the AA general meeting or the Methodist church or wherever I happen to be. And yes, the online meetings, sometimes I get email. I can request an email documenting that I was logged into those meetings. Some I cannot. There's a all veterinarian AA group online that meets once a week, which has also been super helpful. And but I don't. I suppose I could ask someone to provide documentation, but at this point I haven't. It's just based on the honor system.
Now, you mentioned a group counseling meeting with Mr. Larry Collins, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And did Mr. Collins author a letter in support of your petition?
He did.
Was that included in your petition material submitted to the board?
Yes.
I'm going to just have you briefly identify that for us. Directing your attention to Exhibit 4, particularly pages 42 through 44.
I have it.
Have you seen this document before?
I have.
And is this the declaration that Mr. Collins wrote on your behalf in connection with your determination of probation?
It is.
And does it appear to be a true and correct copy of that declaration?
It does.
Thank you. Now, you alluded to the differences between your AA meetings and your PAG group counseling sessions. What would you say has been the biggest difference for you?
I think the fact that it's fellow professionals, the stresses of our jobs, not to diminish what other people do, but the stresses are pretty high. We're in a very privileged position. The public entrusts in us the care of their animals and, on the human side, themselves. Most of us, including myself, are very proud of the fact that we've achieved that position and are highly motivated to not lose that privilege when we've done something to compromise our license. So it's sharing amongst people with similar experiences and similar values. Again, everyone in there is very motivated. Our stories are in some ways similar, but everybody's is a little bit different. I think it's also a more thoughtful group in that we do have a facilitator there who can ask us questions, sometimes probing just in general, but as a therapist, it makes us look at things more deeply than we might just in a 12-step meeting.
Have you made friends through PAG?
I have, through PAG and also through the veterinary group that I go to. There are people that I talk to on the phone, that I text with. On 2 occasions, I've actually met in person with people from the PAG group for outings. And we're thinking about doing another one of those. We're sort of scattered all over Northern California, but it was very cool to meet them in person.
Do you recall the testimonies of Ms. Lieber and Ms. Farrell from this
Yes.
afternoon? Did you hear them talk about perhaps your reluctance to participate in PAG initially?
I did.
And would you agree with that?
I would.
Why were you initially reluctant to participate in PAG?
When I heard about PAG through Mr. Collins, what I really thought I was going to be able to do was just go to his local group. What I didn't realize is that I had to sort of sign up for the whole program. As Ann and Francine mentioned, I probably I thought at the time that I needed that much help. I didn't want to be forced or coerced to go to AA meetings. I just wanted to do this one bit. So yes, when I actually met with Ann and Francine, it was pre-COVID, so I was in their office, came down to their office here in Sacramento, and no, I wasn't a happy camper at that initial meeting, but in hindsight, I'm glad I went. I'm glad I followed their suggestions. It's turned out wonderfully.
How did you overcome those early feelings about PAG that you just described?
Well, I knew I was on probation with the board. And I came to realize that I needed more help to remain more than just abstinent, which I will credit the board for getting me to achieve. You know, one day I just quit drinking. But as far as the recovery process, which is actually more like a discovery process, gaining insight into my disease, my particular situation. I mean, all of us have our stories. My particular situation, I came to see that it was a very valuable thing. And I'm glad I sort of stumbled upon it. And I don't know, maybe from this experience, now the board will be aware of PAG when it has to, when other veterinarians face the same challenge that I did. It's been extremely useful.
Doctor, what's the date of your sobriety?
September 20th, 2019.
What would you describe as the active period of your addiction?
I think from about 2012 onward.
Was there some sort of triggering event in 2012?
Yes. My partner, Ed, who I'd met in 2003, and we shared a home together, he sustained a very severe, in a bicycle accident, a severe neck injury that caused him to become quadriplegic for the last 4 years of his life, during which time he was at home. And we had, after a few months of me trying to care for him overnight, we ended up having 24/7 help in the house. So that when that was obviously a very challenging time, certainly more so for Ed. but for myself too. So that when he passed and when he died in 2012, in the blink of an eye, the house became empty. All the activity, the caregivers, his friends, that vanished, and I was home alone with my bottle of gin.
So after Ed passed and you're home alone, was that, you believe that was your trigger that really led you down the path towards addiction?
I think not having other people in the house, my drinking habits increased to where I started. Previously, I was an after work drinker, a nightly drinker or daily drinker, as they say. But I only drank in the evening times. With no one in the house, nobody to be accountable to, I started drinking in the daytime on the weekends when I wasn't working, which is obviously a very abnormal thing to do. But I did. So it was a trigger, and that obviously it was a great loss for me, but it also was this sort of negative opportunity for my disease to run wild.
Doctor, do you still live alone now?
I do.
Given that contributed to the acceleration of your drinking into alcoholism, how do you manage living alone now without resorting to alcohol?
I have a very strong recovery program. Daily, I participate in activities that keep me focused on my recovery. I've found other tools to help manage the stresses of life in general. Life goes on. And recovery, it's not just not drinking. The steps involved in recovery and the tools that you gain, it's really a design for living and how to go through life without falling back on old habits. So I think that's how I maintain it, and so far I've been very successful, and I think I can continue to be successful.
Mr. Singh, this is AOJ Gavin. Pardon my interruption. I'm aware of the time. I want to balance two things. On one hand, I want to give you a full chance to present your client's case. On the other hand, I have to be aware that we're coming up on 3:30. I have to give Mr. Stone a chance to cross-examine, and there is another petition after yours, plus then a closed session by the board. So I would invite you to take, at maximum, maybe another 5 minutes with your client, and then we can wrap up with Mr. Stone's cross.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Dr. Hansen, what does your support system consist of?
It's very close to what I've outlined in the relapse prevention program that's included in the binder. My participation in PAG, twice weekly participation in that, going to AA meetings. I do have a sponsor now. I acquired a sponsor in probably, I think, early 2020. I worked the steps with her. I've completed the steps. I have a supportive family that are aware of, I made them aware of the DUI, and they're aware of my participation in rehabilitation things. It comes up, it's like, sorry, I got to go to a meeting. Now I've lost my train of thought. What was it you asked me?
You answered the question.
Okay.
What was the most difficult step of the 12 steps that you mentioned you completed?
Dr. Portillo and Dr. Gephardt addressed that. Step 9 of the 12 steps is, when possible, to make amends to people that I've wronged in the past. And for me, that included my fellow veterinarians. So just as they described, I asked for some time at a doctor's meeting. Again, this was pre-COVID, so we were all together in our conference room. And told them that before I stopped drinking, I was not as good a colleague as I could have been. That I let them down by not always being mentally present, by not being aware if I had picked up a shift on the weekend, and when I was notified about it, not being able to meet that, not being able to come in. I was not in a condition to come in. You know, not being willing to necessarily pitch in, say, at the end of the day and stay late working on a case or on a procedure. I explained to them that I was now in recovery, that I was working the steps, that I was attending these other rehab type activities, and let them know that I hoped that that behavior would not happen again.
Do you feel that your life is better since establishing your sobriety?
I do. I'm much more at peace. I'm calmer. I enjoy my work now. I'm happy to attend to everything I need to do to finish up the day in a proper manner. And yes, I'm at home. It's not a struggle to not drink. It's just new normal now.
Doctor, why are you petitioning for early termination of probation?
For several reasons. Firstly, I hope that between my words and the words of people that I know very well, I've established a strong personal recovery program. I'm now highly motivated on my own to do what's required. That almost makes it sound like a chore. It's just part of my life that I want to do. I've seen so many benefits from it. It's certainly not my desire to waste what I've achieved. And I feel I can do that without the supervision of the Veterinary Medical Board at this point. The minimum work requirement as I approach retirement and as I deal with my illness, that might be difficult to maintain. Right now, I'm able to pretty much work a regular schedule. If for whatever reason I was no longer able to work that 25-hour minimum, I would be in violation of my probation program, and I would be forced to surrender my license, which I strongly do not want to do. Again, as I approach retirement and a limited prognosis on my health, I would like to be able to spend more time with my family, to travel, including internationally, and potentially move out of state. My brother lives in Eugene, and my plan is to move near him when I'm no longer working in Chico. Again, I believe if I was to move out of state and no longer be under jurisdiction of the board, that by default I would have to give up my license. I'm proud to be a veterinarian. I'm proud of what I've achieved and the care that I've been able to give the animals and help with the clients, the respect of my community. I don't want to have to sacrifice, I don't want to have to surrender that. I hope I've demonstrated that to the board. And I'm as I said, I'm committed to my recovery from my disease. I'm in a better place, I'm a better person, but maintaining all the conditions of the board's probation may become very difficult for me in the near or far future. I'm not sure, but that is why I'm petitioning the board for early release from probation.
Last question, Doctor. Did you include a relapse prevention plan among the petition materials?
I did.
Okay, great. Given our time considerations, I'm going to now turn you over to Deputy Attorney General Stone.
Thank you, Mr. Singh. Mr. Stone, any thoughts? I think you're muted.
Couple of questions. Thank you for your testimony, first of all. You had mentioned the tools that you use for sobriety now, and you'd mentioned that you still attend AA meetings, is that right?
I do, and could you speak up just a little bit? I wear hearing aids.
Sure. Can you hear me okay now, or better?
Yeah, that's a little better. Thank you.
Sure. Do you anticipate participating in AA for the foreseeable future, regardless of your probation status?
Oh, yes.
And is it same with the group therapy?
Pardon me?
Same with the group therapy? Something you anticipate?
Yes, I intend to remain with PAG for the foreseeable future.
I think you mentioned the tools that you generally use for your sobriety consist of that therapy, as well as the support of your family. You mentioned your brother in that respect. Do you have other family support group in your family?
I have a very small family. My parents are passed. I have a brother and a sister. For whatever reason, familial reasons, I have no cousins. I do have some in-laws and some nieces and nephews, so a very small circle of family, mainly my brother and my sister, particularly my brother. He and I are very close.
You also mentioned that one of the most difficult steps, or the most difficult step in your AA recovery, was the step 9, making amends. Is that right?
Correct.
Is there a step that you found most rewarding? If that was the difficult one, did you find one that to be particularly beneficial to you?
A couple. I mean, step 1 is crucial, and that got alluded to a lot without mentioning it. Step 1 is admitting that we're powerless over alcohol and that our lives had become unmanageable. Every person in recovery has to take that step before much else can happen effectively. I think on a day-to-day basis, the step that I like the most, that sounds kind of weird, but step 10 is to take a daily inventory, or to monitor yourself as you go through the day. And if you've wronged someone, to promptly make it right, to apologize, or whatever is necessary. With a strong recovery program, your heart lets you know if you've done something that isn't consistent with what you know is right. And I call it a emotional hangover. It's happened to me several times since I've been in recovery, and it tells me that you said something to that person that wasn't so kind, or you didn't say something when you should have. So I think step 10 is important and valuable on a day-to-day basis. I use it at work a lot to, you know, keep me on my game.
You mentioned that you felt blindsided when the board stepped in with disciplinary actions regarding the criminal conviction. Can you tell me a little bit about why you felt surprised by the fact that the board would be concerned with the type of conduct that led to your criminal conviction?
I never put two and two together. I didn't think it through as far as the oath we take or when we receive our license, the conditions on that license. As I said, I didn't think it through. The offense didn't happen in the workplace. Yeah, so it was a surprise to me.
And ultimately, did that all come together? How 2 and 2 make 4? So speak on that. How the board would have concern over the same type of issues that the criminal court had concern with, and probably the people in your life had concern with.
Very much so, yes. When I opened the big manila envelope and figured out what was going on, I definitely realized. And then, yes, if my disease had progressed to the point where I was impaired at 8 o'clock in the morning, the board should have concern as to my safety to practice. So yes, I put 2 and 2 together.
And just finally, real quick, there are some still costs outstanding. Would you be able to pay your outstanding costs to the board if you were to be reinstated, or need some time to be able to do that?
I would pay those costs in a heartbeat.
And I think you mentioned that one of your your general interests in being relieved from the probationary terms would be in relation to the amount of hours that you work and your freedom to travel. Is that right?
Correct.
Are there anything else that you feel that that your probationary terms are holding you back from?
Not at this moment. Those are the two main ones.
Okay. And you currently have thoughts about working less hours in your immediate future?
Not in my immediate future, but if my health deteriorates, I may have to make some different decisions.
That's all I have. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stone. That takes us then to the board members. President Bowler, any questions?
Thank you. And thank you very much for coming today. We all know how hard this is, and of course, this was a long hearing, but thank you. I want to thank you for the comprehensive packet you submitted, and today during the testimony, all of my questions were answered, but I want to commend you on your efforts and towards recovery, particularly acknowledging during the last 3 years, this has been a particularly stressful and isolating period with COVID, et cetera. And thank you for your honesty and sincerity. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Bradbury, any questions?
No, Your Honor, I would echo Kathy's sentiments, and I really applaud the work you're doing, and thank you for testifying today.
Thank you. Ms. Laredo, any questions?
No questions, and I just wanted to thank Dr. Hansen for being here today.
Thank you. Dr. Noland, any questions?
No, just again, thank you, Dr. Hansen, and best of luck.
Ms. Prado, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Dr. Solicito, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
All right, Mr. Singh, any other evidence or witnesses?
No further evidence or witnesses. I think it's just a matter of putting the exhibits into evidence now, Your Honor.
Sure. So, Mr. Stone, I assume you're moving exhibits 1 through 5 into evidence. Is that true?
Yes, Exhibit 1 for jurisdictional purposes. Exhibits 2, 3, and 5 for all purposes. Exhibit 4, generally administrative hearsay, but there are some aspects of that there are no objections to for all purposes, which would be the statement of petitioner and the statements from Dr. Gephardt and Portillo and Ms. Farrell. They're at 33 and 34, 29 through 31 and 35 of Exhibit 4. Those could be admitted for all purposes, as well as the narrative statement, 21 through 27.
All right, very good. Mr. Singh, any objection to any of those exhibits 1 through 5?
None at all, Your Honor.
All right, so Exhibit 1, the notice of hearing is admitted for jurisdictional purposes. Exhibits 2, 3, and 5 are admitted. And Exhibit 4, any hearsay objection Mr. Stone has is sustained, and Exhibit 4 will be admitted and used pursuant to what's known as the administrative hearsay rule. That takes us then to Exhibits A, B, and C. Mr. Singh, I assume you're moving those into evidence?
Yes, Your Honor.
Mr. Stone, do you object?
Is A the letter of petitioner's counsel?
No. Exhibit A is the CV for Ms. Lieber. Exhibit B is the CV for Ms. Farrell, and Exhibit C is the CV for Dr. Hansen.
For administrative hearsay purposes or all purposes?
They're being offered into evidence for all purposes.
No objection. No objection.
All right, Exhibits A, B, and C are admitted. Mr. Singh, any other evidence?
No other evidence. Thank you, Your Honor.
Mr. Stone, any other evidence?
No, thank you, Your Honor.
All right, that takes us then to closing argument. Mr. Stone, I realize you're not here in an adversarial capacity. Nevertheless, if you'd like to make any closing remarks, you may do so.
We would waive, the people waive closing remarks in this matter, submitted on the evidence. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Singh, any closing remarks?
Yes, Your Honor, I'll try to be brief.
All right.
We do want to thank everyone for being here today, both remotely and in person. As Dr. Hansen acknowledged, the discipline that was taken against her license was appropriate and warranted, and she actually credits the board for putting her on the path towards embracing recovery and lifelong sobriety. It was demonstrated, I believe, through the testimonies of her colleagues and superiors at VCA Valley Oak, and also through her recovery rehabilitation program monitors, Ms. Farrell and Ms. Lieber, that Dr. Hansen's recovery efforts at this point are self-motivated. She has realized the benefits of living life soberly, and they're not just tools for recovery, as she put it, they're tools for life. And I do want to highlight one part of Dr. Hansen's testimony, in which she described recovery as a journey of discovery. And I think that was very eloquently and appropriately put. And I think Dr. Hansen has discovered herself and has discovered that her life is much better if she lives it soberly, and that she has no intention and desire to lose all that she has achieved over the last couple of years here today. As for the legal requirements and considerations for considering a petition for reinstatement or for early termination of probation, I put all of that in my letter that was received as Exhibit 4A, and I would just point the board members and the administrative law judge to that. Dr. Hansen is now approaching 65 years old. She has 3 years of sustained sobriety. She's a noticeably different person to her colleagues, and she's unfortunately dealing with a very serious return of health concern. Public protection no longer requires a formal monitoring of her recovery efforts. Although her initial efforts in that respect were spearheaded by her desire to maintain her license likely, it's now evident that she's not doing it for the board, not doing it for the license, but she's doing it for herself. And on Dr. Hansen's behalf, I therefore humbly request that a decision issue granting her the relief she requests, which is the termination of the remaining period of her probation. She has the means and ability to pay the remaining costs and fines and fees, and it's my understanding that she will do so forthwith if the relief is granted. Thank you, everyone.
All right, thank you. With that, Mr. Stone, is the matter submitted?
Yes, thank you.
And before I ask that, there's one other thing I needed to ask about. I noticed that on page, it's in Exhibit 4, page 42, petitioner's date of birth appears. Do the parties object to me redacting that myself, Mr. Stone?
No objection.
Mr. Singh?
No objection, Your Honor.
All right, and subject to that redaction that I'll make, Mr. Singh, is the matter submitted?
It is, thank you.
All right, then the matter is submitted, the case is closed, and we are off the record.
Thank you.
Thank you all. Ms. Bowler, President Bowler, this is your meeting, of course. I'll leave it to you. I am ready to go directly to the next petition matter. If you alternatively want to take a brief break, that's fine. I'll leave it to your discretion.
I think we should go directly to the next matter. I know our next person has been waiting, and so I want to be respectful of his time as well, and the board's time and your time. So thank you, and thank you, Dr. Hansen.
Very good. So that's Mr. Splan. Is Mr. Splan there present live, or is he by video call?
He's here, I believe.
All right, very good.
And he's going to, yeah, as soon as he can come up to the desk as soon as they're finished. Good afternoon.
All right, on my screen, the video shot of the hearing room takes up approximately 3 square inches. So I'm trying to tell.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. I'm trying to tell Mr. Splan is situated and ready. I don't want to rush anyone.
Yes, he is. He is seated at the table, Your Honor. Thank you.
Very good. Mr. Splan, can you hear me okay?
I can.
Okay. Thank you for your patience this afternoon and waiting for your matter to be called. Often it's organized so that the matter with an attorney will be called first, and that gives the people who are not represented a chance to see kind of how the anatomy of the hearing works. I trust that you now have a good idea of how the hearing will work. When we go on the record, I'll summarize your rights, but for now, let me just ask, do you have any questions about any of the process before we go on the record?
I don't.
Okay, let me confirm with Mr. Stone. It looks like there are 5 exhibits with this petition. Does that sound right to you?
That's correct. Thank you.
All right, Mr. Splan, will you have any additional exhibits?
I do not.
Okay, will you have any additional witnesses to call?
I do not.
Okay, all right, very good. Mr. Stone, anything that you want to take up before we go on the record?
No, thank you.
President Bowler, are you ready to go on the record?
We are ready, Your Honor.
All right. I just want to let the board members know that once I go on the record and identify the case, I'll then have to reestablish a quorum because it is a new matter. So just be prepared that I will be taking a roll call briefly. All right. With that, we are on the record in the matter of the petition for termination of probation by Blake Jonathan Splan. This matter is being heard before the Veterinary Medical Board, presided over by an ALJ from the Office of Administrative Hearings. My name is Sean Gavin. I am that ALJ. This is agency case number 1002-093929/IA 2015-13 and OAH case number 2022-050637. Can I take the appearances of the parties, starting with counsel?
Thank you, Your Honor. This is Deputy Attorney General Jeff Stone, appearing for the California Office of the Attorney General, here on behalf of the people of the state of California pursuant to Government Code Section 11522. We are not here in the capacity of representing the board, but we are here to represent the consumers and the people of the state of California and public protection in relation to this matter, and to provide the board and the court with whatever information we can to assist in the decision in this matter.
Thank you, Mr. Stone. And Mr. Splan, you are appearing today in person without the assistance of an attorney, is that correct?
Correct.
All right. As you saw in the matter that preceded yours, the way this will work is Mr. Stone will first present the petition packet, as well as take us through a history of the license and discipline. You'll have a right to object to any document in the petition packet as you see fit. Once Mr. Stone has done that, you'll then have a right to present evidence on your own behalf. You can testify on your own behalf, you can call additional witnesses, and you can submit additional documents. Once you've testified, Mr. Stone will have a chance to cross-examine you, followed by an opportunity for any of the board members to ask you questions. Once that's concluded, the parties are free to make closing argument if you wish. Closing argument is optional. Any questions about that procedure, Mr. Splan?
No.
All right, let me just note that this matter is being electronically recorded because there is no certified shorthand reporter available to otherwise record this meeting. That is at the consent of the parties. Mr. Stone, is that correct?
That is correct, thank you.
And Mr. Splan, is that correct that you consent to the electronic recording of this hearing?
I do.
All right, very good. With that, Mr. Stone, anything to take up before we move forward with the petition packet?
No, thank you.
All right, then you can proceed as you see fit.
Thank you. Mr. Splan was issued his registered veterinary technician license in June of 2018. It was issued in relation to the discipline stemming from a statement of issues, a decision which became effective December 9th of 2015, placing him on 5 years probation. The statement of issues and the discipline related to some prior criminal convictions in the Superior Court of Fresno, state of California. 2008, there were several convictions for driving under the influence and for controlled substances, possession of controlled substances, cocaine, and transportation of controlled substances, methamphetamine, a felony. Those 2008 convictions, according to the records, have been set aside and dismissed pursuant to Penal Code Section 1203.4. That happened in 2012. The statement of issues stems from the failure on the application of Mr. Splan to disclose those convictions. And as I said, he was given his RVT in 2018 under a 5-year probation term, and now comes before the board on this petition for early termination.
All right, very good. Thank you, Mr. Stone. Before I went on the record, I promised the board members that I would take a roll call and establish a quorum, and then I didn't do that. So let me do that now. President Bowler, are you present?
Present.
Dr. Bradbury, are you present?
Yes.
Ms. Laredo?
Present.
Dr. Noland,
Yes.
Ms. Prado, I didn't hear an answer, Ms. Prado. Perhaps you may be muted.
No questions. Oh, I'm here. Sorry.
Okay, very good. And Dr. Solicito?
Present.
Okay, very good. Those members establish a quorum. Thank you for doing that. Mr. Splan, that takes us now to your case in chief. We have had an opportunity to review the petition, the packet, as well as the attachments to it. The board is particularly interested in any evidence of rehabilitation. With that said, if you'd like to testify on your own behalf, if you raise your right hand, I can swear you in. Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of perjury that the testimony you'll give in this matter will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, you can put your hand down if you'd like. This is your opportunity to explain in your own words what you think I and the board should know when deciding this case. You can proceed as you see fit.
Thank you. So when I had all of my issues, I completed my probation through the court. I thought that I had finally been able to put that time of my life behind me and that I was never formally convicted of the charges of the crimes I committed, and that when I was asked if I had been convicted, I would be able to mark no. I realized that marking no wasn't taking responsibility for my actions, that it was just trying to hide what I had done, but it's not who I am. I'm responsible for my actions, and so that I should have marked yes on those and faced whatever the consequences were, be it probation or not. And that would have made for a smoother transition into gaining my license. Being on probation hasn't hindered me in my job too much. It hasn't hindered me in my life a whole lot. There are the testing requirements that are difficult at times, and then there is also the not handling of controlled substances, which can be difficult as a RVT. Can add a little bit of a difficulty to it. But for the most part, probation has been fairly easy to obtain or to complete and comply with. And I'm hoping to be able to put this behind me and move forward with being an RVT.
All right, anything else you'd like to say on your own behalf before I turn it over to Mr. Stone and the board members for questions?
I know I haven't been a perfect probationer. I've missed 2 tests. While I've been on probation, I've missed a couple of call-ins that I have tested the following day for. One test I missed because I did not know that there are no weekend testing facilities in Central California. And the other was in like my first month, I just totally blanked on calling in, missed the test. And I was made aware of that later. And I think that's it for me.
Thank you. Mr. Stone, any cross?
I do have some, but perhaps before we get to that, I could go over some of the exhibits that we have and get those identified and admitted into evidence.
Sure.
Great. The first exhibit we have is the notice of hearing, setting today's hearing on this petition for termination of probation for today's date, time, and place, and I would ask that that be admitted for jurisdictional purposes.
Mr. Splan, do you object to the notice of hearing being used to establish jurisdiction in this case?
I do not.
Exhibit 1 is admitted for jurisdictional purposes.
And Exhibit 2 is the license certification for petitioner, registered veterinary technician number RVT 12833, and we would ask that that be admitted for all purposes.
Mr. Splan, do you object?
No.
Exhibit 2 is admitted.
And then Exhibit 3 is the underlying discipline. It's the decision and order Regarding the statement of issues, it is in board case number 10020939929, IA 2015-13, and the accompanying statement of issues, and we would ask that that be admitted into evidence for all purposes as well.
Mr. Splan, do you object?
No.
Exhibit 3 is admitted.
And Exhibit 4 is the petition that, for termination of probation received by the board on April 29, 2022. It consists of the petition narrative, the petitioner's resume, and 2 letters. A letter from Ramona Turner, dated January 27, 2022, and from Lisa Ferretti, dated April 10th, 2022. And we would ask that Exhibit 4, the petition and supporting documents, be admitted into evidence as administrative hearsay.
Mr. Splan, do you object?
No.
All right, Exhibit 4 is admitted, and any hearsay objection is sustained, but Exhibit 4 will be used to the extent permissible under what's known as the administrative hearsay rule.
And finally, Exhibit 5 is the probation compliance status report dated May 2nd, 2022, and we would ask that Exhibit 5 be admitted into evidence for all purposes.
Mr. Splan, do you object?
No.
Exhibit 5 is admitted. Mr. Stone, do you have any questions?
That consists of the evidence we would ask to be submitted to the court, and then if now is a good time, I would proceed with some questions.
Yes, proceed as you see fit.
Thank you. Tell me where you currently work, please.
I currently work at 24/7 Pet Vets. It's a 24-hour emergency hospital in Fresno, California.
How long have you worked for them?
3 months.
And what do you do for them?
I'm an RVT for them, so I'm still being trained in how they do everything, but I assist with surgeries, seeing patients, performing treatments.
And do you work full-time there?
I do.
And what was your employment before then?
Before that, I worked for the Fresno Cat Hospital with Dr. Ramona Turner.
And how long did you work there?
As an RVT, I worked there for 3 years. Prior to that, I worked there 12 years as an assistant.
And can you describe like your job duties and functions generally as an RVT at the Fresno Cat Hospital?
Yeah, so at the Fresno Cat Hospital, I was the surgical assistant. I helped Doc Turner do all the surgeries that she performed. I also did all the dental scaling and polishing, and then assisted with the exams and treatments done on the scheduled appointments. I did that as an RVT, and then prior to that, when I first started, I was a kennel assistant, so I cleaned kennels, and then eventually moved up to just helping with patients and vaccines and things like that.
So you were at the Fresno Cat Hospital for about 15 years total?
Correct.
And why did you leave that employment?
The doctor passed away, and they closed.
That's Dr. Turner?
Correct.
And when did that facility close?
End of February.
And is that why you went to work for the 24/7 Pet Vets?
Correct.
And do they know that you're currently on probation?
Yes.
And if you could describe for us a little bit about the, I suppose that generally speaking, the change of lifestyle that it seems you've undergone between your convictions in 2008 and now, if you can talk to us a little bit about your life then and your life now.
Yes. So 2008 was my convictions. That was not the start of my problems. They started 2005. I didn't really have a direction. I had just finished high school. There was no pressure on me from my family to go to college or really do anything, so I didn't really have direction. They wanted me to just, they thought I would figure it out. I did figure it out, and it was drugs, which did not work out. So I kept a job barely most of the time, and in 2008, it was when I got there's two separate incidences that occurred. The first was in 2008 with the possession of cocaine, and then I believe it was in 2009. It was with possession of methamphetamine. In 2009, my family took a more active role in my recovery, and I actually did inpatient rehab, and I came home and everything was fine for the most part, but it progressed worse. My addiction did, and then I attended rehabilitation again. The second time I attended, I had met my wife. We started dating. We were engaged. We had gotten married. And then life sort of got complacent. I didn't really pressure myself into expanding what I was doing, and I started using again. And then more voluntarily attended rehab, which was a better experience for me and for my family. At this time, when I came home, the doctor I worked for said I should look into doing something more with vet medicine or find something else to do. So I decided to try to become an RVT, and with the guidance to actually do something instead of just sit around and do the same job for another 20 years, I started setting goals for myself and becoming self-motivated to improve my condition in life and improve the condition of my family. So I then applied for becoming an RVT, and now I have a family. My wife, she stuck through all of this with me. We have a son. He's about to be 6, and I was planning on trying to get my specialty, veterinary technician specialty, for dental practice and just maybe anesthesia for the doctor I worked with. But since I'm no longer working there and I'm at emergency, I am reevaluating what to do as my next step.
I think you mentioned have you been in inpatient recovery 2 times?
Yes.
And when was the second time you were in recovery?
2012.
And what was the drug or drugs that you were involved with?
Cocaine and methamphetamine.
And when was the last time you used cocaine or methamphetamines?
August 6, 2012.
And in addition to your inpatient treatment, are you involved in any other types of recovery programs?
I do attend AA.
And have you worked all the steps?
I have.
And how often do you currently go to AA meetings?
I go about twice a month.
When did you start AA?
2008 under court orders is when I started attending, but when I actually started participating, 2017 maybe.
And can you tell me what steps you found to be most challenging or difficult?
It sounds weird, but it's basically any step involving honesty was the first time I found to be the most difficult, which is steps 1, 4, and 7, and 10.
And at some point in time, did the switch sort of click regarding dealing with that honesty and dealing with those steps and moving forward?
Yes. After you are honest in the beginning and long enough, it's much easier to do and keep up. It's not a burden.
And what about which step or steps did you find the most rewarding? Sometimes it's the same thing.
Yeah, definitely in the long run, being honest is more rewarding. Making amends was terrifying, but it did provide for a better closure on my past.
And how long have you been married?
13 years.
I think you mentioned you have a almost 6-year-old child. Is that right?
Yes.
And in addition to AA and hopefully the support of your immediate family, can you tell us a little bit more about your general support system regarding your sobriety and your profession and your career?
Yeah. So I have 2 really good friends that I met in inpatient rehabilitation. I stay in constant contact with them, so they're always there for me. In my profession, it's not as strong as it used to be. At my previous employer, my wife also worked there, so she was always with me. And then there was really only one other employee, and she knew everything about what's going on with me. So it was much stronger there. Now I'm sort of bouncing around between a lot of shifts, so I'm seeing different people frequently. But I'm sort of learning who's more consistently there, and the people who are and more in a supervisor role, I've given them more insight than just, hey, I'm on probation, I can't do these things. I've told them more about what's going on, and they are supportive, very supportive of where I'm at and what I'm doing.
It must be quite a change from being essentially the same place of employment for 15 years. Probably felt like a family there.
It very much was.
And so I imagine your employment and sort of your day-to-day activities there are sort of new and different and present a new challenge. How has that affected your attitude towards work, and any feelings that you might have regarding drug use or other pressures from your past?
Pressures for drug use, there aren't any. It's been 10 years. It all, like, work-related stress isn't a trigger for me, luckily, because it is a very fast-paced and stressful environment. But yes, it is a lot of new experiences.
And you feel you have sufficient support to deal with those new experiences that you're going through now and probably will at various periods of your life?
Yes, I do.
Do you have any involvement or contact with people or circumstances like during your life in 2008 to 2012 timeframe?
I don't.
And tell us a little bit about your interest in terminating your probation and how you think that might benefit you.
So I'd like to terminate my probation. I've been on it 4 years. Yeah, 4 years, so this is my last year. In my current capacity, there are a lot of times that we have patients who come in and need pain management injections given or to have surgery started, and so they need the anesthesia administered. I cannot do this. Usually there's always someone else to do that. Sometimes everyone else is occupied with other emergencies going on, and they all look to me because I'm an RVT, so I should be able to do it. Instead, I have to go find someone else and figure out what they're doing so I can switch with them while they go and do those tasks.
Got it. Thank you. I don't have anything further.
All right, thank you, Mr. Stone. Mr. Spland, I'm now going to give the board members a chance to ask you any questions they might have. President Bowler?
Thank you very much. And again, thank you very much for coming today. Again, as I said before, we know this is very difficult and it's a little scary and everything else, but we appreciate you being here and your honesty with everything. I think a lot of the questions that I had, you've answered already, but I want to touch on a couple of things. Question: your sobriety date in 2012, is that from alcohol and narcotics?
From narcotics. Alcohol is like 2008 or something.
Oh, I see. That was prior to that.
But yeah, but I just used the.
Okay, that was fine. That's fine.
Okay.
Yeah, I just wanted to. And then I think you said this, but you've been attending AA or NA meetings, and are you going to continue with that if you were to be granted early termination?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. You've talked a little bit about your support system, and Mr. Stone mentioned something, and I thought of it too. I imagine the death of your veterinarian you had worked with for many years at that facility, and then moving and the closure and moving was very stressful. And I just wondered, I think you highlighted any tools you came up with to manage that when you moved into this new job, because I'm sure it was sudden and very stressful and sad. But what happened? And can you elaborate on any of those tools that you've used to help yourself during that time?
Using drugs never even crossed my mind. There was never even a thought of I need a drink, or it never even crossed my mind. It was just, what can I do as the next step to help her son and daughter with what they're going through? She moved in with her son and daughter down the street when I was 8 years old. So I've been down at their house for 20 plus years. So I knew what they were going through. And it was just, how can I be available for them to help them with whatever they need? Using never crossed my mind. For tools though, attending meetings, whenever those urges come up, or calling someone, always very important. Focusing on hobbies is also very helpful for me. And then doing something that I can see a physical positive outcome from. So something as simple as yard work, vacuuming, anything that can show a positive impact on the environment. Those are all tools that I know to use when I need them. I have them and they're available for whatever comes up.
Thank you. That's all I have. Question. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you, President Bowler. Dr. Bradbury, any questions?
Hi, thank you. And thank you for testifying and kind of bearing your soul to us. I know Ms. Bowler said this, but we do understand how difficult that must be. And I am sorry for your loss of Dr. Turner. It sounds like she was a really good mentor to you. And it also sounds like part of probably why you would stay sober. Anyway, I just wanted to say thank you for coming, and all of my questions have been answered already. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Ms. Laredo?
Hi, thank you for coming. You answered most of my questions. I just have one. How much time is left on your probation?
I think it's done June 19th of 23.
Okay, and that was all. Thank you for coming.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. Dr. Noland?
Yes, just reiterate, thank you for coming and appreciate your testimony. It really answered all my questions and I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Prado?
Yes, no, I echo the sentiments of the rest of the board. Thank you so much. You have been very patient because it was a long hearing before. So thank you so much for being so candid and for your candor.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. And then finally, Dr. Solicito.
Likewise, thank you for coming and for your candor and honesty. So,
thank you.
All right, then, Mr. Spland, if you have any additional testimony you'd like to offer, you can do so now. Alternatively, if you have any other witnesses to call or any other evidence, you can call those witnesses or submit that evidence now.
I don't think so. The questions you asked was everything I was going to mention in my closing, so I am all set.
Okay. Dr. Bradbury, I saw you raise your hand. I don't know if that was to ask a question or to block the sun or something else.
It was to block the sun. Thank you.
Okay. All right, very good. Mr. Stone, any follow-up questions?
No, thank you.
All right, then that concludes the evidence portion of the case. That takes us then to closing argument. Mr. Stone, I realize that you're not here in the adversarial role, but if you'd like to make any closing remarks, you may do so now.
No, thank you. We have closing.
Mr. Spland, would you like to make any closing argument on your own behalf?
Thank you for the opportunity to meet with you guys today.
Very good, thank you. In a moment, then I'm going to ask whether the matter is submitted. And by that, I mean, are you satisfied you've had a full opportunity to present all evidence and make all argument on your behalf? Mr. Stone, is the matter submitted?
It is submitted, thank you.
And Mr. Spland, is the matter submitted?
It is.
All right, then the matter is submitted, the case is closed, and we are off the record. All right, thank you for your time today, Mr. Spland. President Bowler, I'll throw it back to you.
Thank you.
Take us into
Thank
closed
you
session.
so much, and thank you.
Thank you.
And again, apologize for, but at least it's cool in here as opposed to being really hot outside or in Fresno, so.
It's always nice to see other people be successful, though, so it's a pleasure to be here.
Well, thank you, and thank you for your work and service
It's fun.
to animals and their owners.
And their people.
And their people. I think, Your Honor, at this point, we recess the public portion of the meeting and go into the convene closed session for deliberation. Is that correct? I'm looking at the staff here.
Yes, that's correct. So what we're going to do is the facilitators for the WebEx is going to jump off of the WebEx. If the ALJ and the members can hang tight, we're going to also disconnect it from the webcast and the live stream and the audio. But just for the members of the public, just know that we will reopen in open session just to recess, and so that won't be webcast at all or on the WebEx. So with that, we can recess and go from there.
Thank you.
Thank you.